Chapter 248. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet. In the next room, Gu Jiao was treating little Jing Kong's injuries. He didn't have any injuries on his body, but his heart was hurt. His hair, which he had grown for several months, was gone. He was so sad that he kept twitching. He couldn't show it in front of others, but when he was in Gu Jiao's arms, he couldn't bear it anymore. His little body curled into a ball and his little head drooped. He pressed his little head with his two little hands and said with tears in his eyes, my hair is gone again." Gu Jiao said, "It will grow back. I'll make a few more sesame pills for you to eat later. I'll also wash your hair with Chinese knotweed to make your hair grow faster." "Okay." Little Jing Kong nodded coquettishly. Gu Jiao looked at his little bald head and asked, "Does it still hurt?" The little guy actually used the iron head skill, which he had never practiced before. It really scared her to death. "It hurts. I need to blow on it." Little Jing Kong patted his little bald head. Gu Jiao gently blew on his head. Little Jing Kong lay in Gu Jiao's arms and buried his little head in her neck. He was so happy that he kept bubbling. Gu Jiao remembered the scene when she brought the little guy back to the medical center. At that time, the little guy didn't know that Ming misunderstood their relationship and thought that he was really Princess Yu's son. He said to Princess Yu seriously and embarrassedly, "I'm sorry. Although you're my mother, I still can't go back with you. I want to be with Jiao Jiao. Jiao Jiao took care of me. And I also want to be like Gu Jiao." In the end, who was the one who saved who? Gu Jiao kissed the little guy's little bald head. "Jiao Jiao, did you just kiss me?" The little guy asked softly with a hint of expectation. "Yeah, I kissed you." Gu Jiao nodded. Little Jing Kong was so shy that he grabbed Gu Jiao's clothes and buried his head in Gu Jiao's arms, turning himself into a little mimosa. In another room of the clinic, Prince Yu and Xiao Luleng were thanking Lu Yixing, the hero of this incident. Lu Yixing happened to be nearby when Ming'er was knocked down by the stick. Lu Yixing didn't know Ming'er, but he had seen little Jing Kong and Gu Jiao together from afar. He was afraid that even Gu Jiao didn't know about this. Lu Yixing was a weak scholar. It was impossible for him to beat some beggars, but he was Lu Yixing. With just one sentence, "I Lu Yixing am here," half of the people in the capital wanted to come and beat him up. He pointed at the middle-aged man and the beggar called oldly, "These are my sworn brothers. With them here, you can forget about hurting me." Then the beggar was beaten up. Lu Yixing brought the two children back to the clinic. This was the whole story of the incident. Xiao Luleng and Prince Yu had only heard of Lu Yixing, but had never seen him before. They only knew that he was a descendant of noble consort Lu's mother's family. He was implicated by noble consort Lu and her family, so his life in the capital was difficult. They didn't expect that the two children would be saved by him. Prince Yu personally presented a gift of thanks. "Thank you, young Master Lu, for saving my son. I hope young Master Lu will accept this small gift of thanks." Lu Yixing was short on money, so he didn't refuse and accepted it generously. Prince Yu was very satisfied. He didn't like to owe people favors. Since the other party accepted the gift, it meant that the other party had the same intention. He couldn't help but look at the other party. "I heard about your situation in the capital. Are you willing to go to the country of Liang?" The Lu family had colluded with the country of Chun, not the country of Liang. Lu Yixing and Prince Yu's residence did not have such a sensitive political relationship. Even if there was, with Prince Yu's ability, he could still protect Lu Yixing. Lu Yixing said, "Thank you, Prince, for your kindness. For the time being, I don't want to leave." Lu Yixing did not beat around the bush no matter what he said or did. In this aspect, he was much better than those hypocritical and polite young people. Prince Yu did not ask Lu Yixing. With his situation like this, what was there in the capital for him to stay? After saying a few words of gratitude, Prince Yu went to the next room to visit Ming-er. Thus, only Xiao Luleng and Lu Yixing were left in the room. Xiao Luleng naturally wanted to express his gratitude. He had recently earned some money from writing articles for others, and had planned to give it to Gu Jiao. Now, it was not a bad idea to use it as a reward. Other than the reward, he also took 2 books that Elder Feng had left for him and put them in a brocade box. However, he did not expect that Lu Yixing would not accept it. Why? Xiao Lulang looked at him in confusion. Lu Yixing looked at Xiao Lulang and said, "When Dr. Gu treats me, she either receives less or no treatment. I owe Dr. Gu a favor and cannot accept your gift." Xiao Lulang looked at Lu Yixing again. Other than his pale complexion, he had handsome features, red lips, and white teeth. He really had a good appearance. So one royal prince and was not enough, and now there was another Lu Yixing? Xiao Liulang's eyes suddenly became cold. Lu Yixing. Ming Er's injury was a little serious. When the rod hit him, it almost broke his spine. Although his spine was saved, his spleen was ruptured. After little Jing Kong fell asleep in Gu Jiao's arms, Gu Jiao put little Jing Kong on the bed and covered him with a blanket. Then, she turned to the next room to check on Ming Er. Ming Er was also asleep. Princess Yu's eyes were red and swollen. Since Ming Er said that he had found her younger brother and asked her not to cry, her tears had not stopped. It was heartache and self-blame, but also the satisfaction and happiness of being loved deeply. The pain of losing her son seemed to be no longer important. Looking at the child who had almost lost his life for her, she suddenly felt that it was the greatest honor in her life to be his mother. "Miss Gu, thank you so much this time. Thank you for saving Ming Er again." Princess Yu stood up and thanked Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao stopped her from bowing and shook her head slightly. "You don't have to thank me. The person who really saved him is you." When Gu Jiao was operating on Ming Er was in a critical condition of hemorrhage and needed an emergency blood transfusion. Unfortunately, Ming Er turned out to have a very rare blood type. No one at the scene matched his blood type, except for Princess Yu. It was Princess Yu who gave Ming Er a second life. Gu Jiao said seriously, "From now on, your blood flows in his body." Princess Yu nodded with a choked voice. She leaned over and touched Ming Er's forehead with her forehead. 2 drops of hot tears fell. Even without this, he would always be her son. Ming Er was recuperating in Gu Jiao's small courtyard. Little Jing Kong came to the medical center to accompany him after school. Obviously, the 2 of them who had been through the same ordeal became real brothers. Even though little Jing Kong already knew that he was not his biological brother, it did not affect the revolutionary friendship between the 2 of them. Ming Er spoke Zhao State dialect very well, but little Jing Kong's Liang State dialect was not good enough. Ming Er often tutored him. With the language environment, little Jing Kong's Liang State dialect improved a lot. On this day, little Jing Kong accompanied Ming Er to the courtyard to bask in the sun. Ming Er suddenly said to little Jing Kong, "I want to be a general in the future. What about you?" Little Jing Kong thought for a while and said seriously, "I want to study and be the top scholar." Ming Er was disappointed. "It would be great if you could be a general. If the 2 countries are at war in the future, I will retreat 30 miles for you." Little Jing Kong was successfully led astray by him. He imagined himself leading the army and patted his chest. "Then I won't kill your soldiers." In the blink of an eye, it was April. Ming Er's injury gradually healed, and the negotiations between the 2 countries were coming to an end. Although Prince Yu did not ask for the child, he did not take back the glazing technology. He still gave it to Zhao State as an equivalent exchange. As for the unequal trade, there was not much room for compromise. Kindness was kindness, and politics was politics. Moreover, the kindness was Gu Jiao's personal behavior, and it had nothing to do with the imperial court. Prince Yu was an excellent politician. He would never act on impulse. The glazed glass technology was already his biggest concession. If he acted first and reported later, he would be scolded by the monarch when he returned. To be honest, the emperor was quite surprised by this result. There was no doubt that Liang State was here to cut their meat. In the past, they exchanged the drainage technology for 3 large and small mines in Zhao State. In comparison, they were quite merciful this year. The world was divided into 6 countries. Yan State, Liang State, and Jin State were the upper countries, while Zhao State, Chun State, and Zhao State were the lower countries. In fact, there was Tujue State, but the 6 countries did not recognize it as a country. Chun State had a good relationship with Jin State in recent years, and its relationship with the other countries was not too bad. Zhao State could not break its relationship with Liang State, or it would become isolated and helpless. At the end of April, the envoy from Liang State also finished his trip in the capital. The emperor personally sent the envoy from Liang State off in the throne room, and then the crown prince and Marquis Xianping sent the envoy out of the capital. Before leaving, Ming went to the medical center. He had already removed the stitches. Although he could not jump around, he recovered quickly, and it was not a problem for him to move around on the ground. He came to say goodbye to his little brother. If you go to Liang State in the future, remember to find me at Prince Yu's mansion. I will treat you to delicious food. After knowing that little Jing Kong had a boundless appetite, Ming categorized little Jing Kong as a foodie. Little Jing Kong. Actually, the real foodie in the family is my great-aunt. This is for you. Ming gave his favorite scimitar to little Jing Kong. This was not an ordinary scimitar. It was a gift he caught during the catch ceremony. The people of Liang State valued the catch ceremony very much, and they would not give it away easily. Little Jing Kong was actually a little confused. He was a scholar, why would he need a scimitar? He would not need it in the future. But since it was a gift from Ming, he happily accepted it, and then planned to give Ming a gift in return. In order to avoid the same situation as Ming he opened his small box and let Ming choose by himself. You can pick whatever you like. Little Jing Kong's things were in a mess. Gu Jiao cleaned it up, but it was messed up by little Jing Kong after a few days. For Ming who was used to using gold, silver and jade, it was like a big car accident scene. Ming suddenly sympathized with his little brother. His little brother's family was too poor, and he could not even afford a decent toy. When he returned to the country, he would definitely send his little brother the best toy. In order not to hurt his little brother's self-esteem, Ming resisted the urge to quickly close the box, and chose the most inconspicuous small box. He did not take the big pieces of junk inside. Maybe his little brother could exchange them for some money in the future. Ming felt that a scimitar was not enough, so he asked the eunuch, "Do you have money with you?" "Yes," the eunuch said. "Give it to me. Give it to me." Ming robbed the eunuch of his money, and took out an old yellowed paper from the box, and put the banknotes in it. He also kept the box for his little brother, in case the box could be sold for some money. After that, Ming reluctantly bid farewell to little Jing Kong. After that, the family set foot on the road back to Liang State. The visit of the Liang State's envoys had a huge impact on Zhao State, but for the people it was just something to talk about. Of course, in the near future, they might feel this change personally. Zhao State had the imperial examination in spring this year, and the two sides inevitably talked about the imperial examination. The imperial examination system of Liang State was much more complete than that of Zhao State, not only because Liang State did not test the military examination, but also because Liang State did not test the 8 parts of the body, but added mathematics, law, agriculture, and astronomy. To a large extent, this broadened the comprehensive ability of talents. If it was changed to Gu Jiao's words in her previous life, it would be like taking the liberal arts and science examination together. And not only liberal arts students would have a way out. Of course, the 4 books and 5 classics were still the most important. The emperor felt that this kind of imperial examination was very good. He liked astronomy and mathematics, and maybe Zhao State could imitate it in the future. On the surface, the old duke had resigned, so he did not have to worry about receiving the envoys. He had been recuperating in his mansion these days. Last time, when he got drunk and woke up, the old duke remembered what he had promised at the dinner table. He regretted it. How could he be hot-headed and say that his son should call the other person father? That little brother was really too much. At such a young age, how could he have such a strange hobby? But a gentleman's word cannot be taken back. He, Gu Chao, was a person who kept his promises. He would not go back on his words. Therefore, on the first day that Marquis Gu recovered, the old duke stepped into his room with a cordial expression. Ever since Marquis Gu had been beaten up by his father, this was the first time he saw his father, and he was pleasantly surprised. He cupped his hands and bowed. "Father?" "Yes." The Marquis cleared his throat and asked, How's your injury? Have you recovered? His father was here to show concern for him? Marquis Gu was flattered. I'm much better. I made father worry, it's my fault. There was no need to worry about you. The old duke coughed again and said, I came to tell you something. I found a father for you. Marquis Gu was confused. No, I can understand you finding a mother for me, but what do you mean by finding a father for me? Have you become so hardcore as you get older? What's wrong with not respecting your elders? The old duke also realized that he had said something wrong and hurriedly corrected him. I found a father for you. This sentence was no better than the one just now. Why else would military generals be said to be dumb with words? If the old chancellor was here, there would definitely be 100 ways to explain it beautifully and clearly. It means that I have become sworn brothers. Sworn brothers. According to seniority, you are also his son, so you have to call him father. The old duke simply brought him to meet his brother. Gu Jiao told the old duke that her surname was Gu. She used the surname when she was in the martial arts club, so it was not convenient to change it. Moreover, Gu Jiao was too lazy to change it. There were many people with the surname Gu in the capital. Not only did the old duke not suspect, but he also felt that the two of them were fated. They both had the surname Gu and even became sworn brothers. This kind of fate was hard to find. The old duke and Gu Jiao contacted each other through Taihe Martial Arts Club. They would leave letters and replies in the martial arts club. The old duke left a letter for Gu Jiao, inviting him to meet at the tea house tomorrow evening. He would bring his unfilial son. Gu Jiao quickly replied to him. There was only one word on the letter. Okay. After Gu Jiao finished her work in the medical center, she changed into a gongzi outfit, put on a coquettish peacock feather mask, and happily went to the tea house. Today, someone was going to call her father. Gu Jiao waited quietly in the room of the tea house. Because she was a little excited, she swayed her legs in front of the chair a few times. The old duke was a punctual person, so he didn't let Gu Jiao wait for too long. He took Marquis Gu to the second floor of the tea house. Master Gu is here, the waiter said with a smile. Gu, father? Your sworn brother's surname is also Gu? Marquis Gu inexplicably felt strange. The old duke glared at him. Don't offend him later. I know. How would I dare to offend your sworn brother? The old duke had been saying this all the way, as if he was afraid that he was insensible and would do something to the other person. What a joke. He was a marquis after all, and had been in the bureaucracy for many years. How could he not know how to deal with people? Wasn't it just calling him father? Godfather and godfather were both fathers. It wasn't a loss to call him father's brother. Creak. The old duke pushed the door open and said in a refreshed manner, Little brother Gu, big brother is here. Little brother. Shouldn't he call him little brother? Marquis Gu's mind was thinking of an old man about the same age as his own father. Who would have thought that when he entered the room, he would see a young man as white as jade. The young man was even wearing a coquettish peacock feather mask. Marquis Gu was completely dumbfounded. He was going to call this kid father? Gu Jiao couldn't hide her excitement any longer. She sat upright and still with her eyes wide open, looking at Marquis Gu. Hurry up and call him. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1130135003. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 249. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Marquis Gu must not call him that. How old is this kid? Don't judge him by his mask. His eyes, hands, and even his figure revealed his age. He's about the same age as Yenner. How can I call him father? His father is really too much. It's one thing to become sworn brothers at such an old age, but how did he get his own son involved? Did he really just pick him up? Otherwise, how could he cheat his son's father? What Marquis Gu didn't know was that not only did he have a father who cheated his son, he also had a daughter who cheated her father. Call him father. Old Marquis Gu reminded him with false bravado. Actually, he also knew that he went overboard. How could he let his son call his brother father? At most, he would call him uncle. But it was still the same sentence. He had already agreed. He was a person who cared about face, so he could only cheat his son. I won't. It was too embarrassing. Marquis Gu was also a person with integrity. His father cared about face, so did he? If he said he wouldn't call him father, he wouldn't call him father even if he was beaten to death. Old Marquis Gu couldn't back down and really raised his hand to slap him. It was simply too natural for a father to hit his son. Marquis Gu closed his eyes. Fine, hit me. I'll let you hit me. Call me father, I lose. However, Gu Jiao stopped the old Marquis and used a charcoal pencil to write on a small piece of paper. Don't listen to teach slowly. As a father, you have to be patient. Gu Jiao wrote a few more words and showed them to Marquis Gu. Come eat dinner. Marquis Gu glanced at the messy words, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He seemed to understand how his father became sworn brothers with the other party. Just based on this ugly character, it was simply the same as the men of the Gu family. In the Gu family, even someone as outstanding as Gu Changqing could write indescribably with a brush. So his father must have found a sense of intimacy with the other party's calligraphy? But then again, he couldn't speak? Was he a little mute? Marquis Gu sized him up. The mask covered half of his face, but judging from his eyes and chin, he should be an exquisite young man. What a pity. Marquis Gu sat down beside him. Now that her status was different, Gu Jiao looked at Marquis Gu differently from before. She showed great interest in Marquis Gu. She looked at Marquis Gu like an old father. Marquis Gu felt his hair stand on end. Is it really okay for a teenager like you to look at people like that? The dishes were quickly served. Marquis Gu was shocked. Why were they all his favorite dishes? Marquis Gu peeled a prawn. Gu Jiao showed a gratified and praising expression. Marquis Gu, no, I'm just peeling a prawn. Is it necessary? I'm not a retard. Then Marquis Gu began to eat. Gu Jiao didn't say anything during the whole process, but Marquis Gu felt that her eyes were like this. Look, look. He ate prawns. He knew how to eat prawns. Look, look. He ate fish. He knew how to spit thorns. This was just Marquis Gu's imagination. He felt that she didn't mean that, but what was the meaning of her excited expression? You want to eat? Marquis Gu held the peeled prawn and asked Gu Jiao. He didn't want to ask, but he felt his hair stand on end from her gaze. Gu Jiao nodded. Marquis Gu put the prawn in her bowl. Gu Jiao tilted her head proudly. Marquis Gu seemed to read another sentence from her small eyes. Wow, so filial. Marquis Gu was shocked by his own conjecture. Stop your brain. Stop your brain. The old Marquis met an acquaintance and went out to greet him. Only the two of them were left in the room. Gu Jiao didn't give up on the idea of making him call her father. She wrote with a charcoal pencil. If you call father, I'll give you a red packet. Marquis Gu peeled the prawn. Ha ha ha, if you call me father, I'll give you a red packet. Gu Jiao thought for a while and wrote, give more or less. Marquis Gu. Gu Jiao wrote again, I don't study good writing. Not good. How do you pronounce this word? The word was written crookedly. Marquis Gu tried his best to make out the outline. He frowned and said uncertainly, drop? Gu Jiao, yes. Marquis Gu. What kind of sly little thing was this? Wait, there was something wrong with the voice. It seemed to be a little girl. Marquis Gu's body trembled as he suddenly looked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao touched her fingers. She was too excited just now and accidentally answered. Marquis Gu looked her up and down, not letting go of a single strand of her hair. You are. Gu Jiao shook her head decisively. I'm not. Marquis Gu stood up suddenly. You are. Gu Jiao punched him. Ah. Marquis Gu had a panda eye and he covered his left eye. In this moment of distraction, Gu Jiao rushed out of the door. Marquis Gu took a while to recover. This familiar strength, this familiar formula. Why was it so similar to that stinky girl? Although Marquis Gu didn't have any evidence, he felt that there was no other person in the world who was so daring other than that stinky girl. In order to confirm his guess, Marquis Gu didn't care if his father was still in the tea house receiving guests and chased after her with large strides. How could his body, which had been recuperating for half a month, be compared to Gu Jiao who trained every day? He lost her in a short while. He went to the medical hall. Gu Jiao wasn't there. Not there? Very well. He immediately went to Jade Water Alley. He wanted to see where that girl could hide this time. The courtyard door was left ajar. He angrily walked in. Just as he was about to yell for that stinky girl to get out here, he saw Yao Shi wearing a loose yellow dress and sitting on a rattan chair in the front yard embroidering. After not seeing her for a long time, Yao Shi's face had become rounder and her complexion was ruddier. She wasn't fat, but she looked much more beautiful. Marquis Gu was immediately stunned. Senior servant Fong was the first to notice him and bowed. Marquis. Yao Shi slowly turned her face. Perhaps it was because she was comfortable here, but the gloominess between her brows had disappeared. Her eyes were clear and her entire body exuded a motherly gentleness. Marquis Gu had never seen Yao Shi like this before. Yao Shi put down the needle and thread in her hand. Marquis, why have you come? I came to see you. Marquis Gu walked forward and said. Yao Shi pointed at the stool to the side. Marquis, please sit. I'll go make a pot of tea for you. Senior servant Fong said and left. Marquis Gu looked at Yao Shi and could not move his eyes away. He held Yao Shi's hand. It was my fault for not coming to see you these days. It's fine. Yao Shi asked. Is Jinyu doing well? Ever since Yao Shi moved out, she had not returned. Jinyu had come to see her at first, but he had not come recently. He's doing well. He just misses you a little. After Marquis Gu said this, his gaze fell on her slightly plump figure. He wanted to ask if she had gotten fat, but when the words reached his lips, he felt that this was a suicidal question. He changed the topic. That's right, is Jiao Jiao home? Yao Shi gently said. She hasn't woken up from her afternoon nap. You're looking for her? Marquis Gu muttered. What time is it now? She's still taking an afternoon nap? Yao Shi said. She slept late. Do you need something from her? Marquis Gu cleared his throat and shook his head, saying, nothing. I'm just concerned about her. Has she been home all afternoon? Yao Shi nodded. There's nothing going on at the clinic today. She's been at home the entire time. Could it be that it wasn't that girl? Was he thinking too much? Yao Shi would not lie to him. It seemed that he was thinking too much. The dates for the court examination were out. The minor exam was set for the 15th of the 4th month, while the main exam was set for the 17th of the 4th month. The minor exam was a test before the court examination. It was held in the Imperial Palace. The purpose was to let the examinees familiarize themselves with the examination environment and listen to the rules. This was to prevent them from losing their composure in front of the emperor. The minor exam did not count towards the results, but they could not blindly take the exam as it would offend the examiners. On the 11th and 12th day of the 4th month, the examination hall would give out matching cards and examinations to all the examinees. The matching cards were used to enter the palace, while the examinations were used to enter the examination hall. The examinations and matching cards had to be personally received by the examinees. Early in the morning of the 11th day, Feng Lin and Lin Qingye came to Bai Shui Alley to find Xiao Lulang. The three of them brought their examinees' documents and went to the examination hall to exchange for matching cards and examinations. The documents had to be kept at the examination hall. After the examination, they had to return the matching cards and examinations to exchange for the examinees' documents. The three of them met Du Ruhan at the entrance. In the examination, Feng Lin was ranked 176th, while Lin Qingye was ranked 123rd. Both of them were ranked towards the bottom. Du Ruhan was ranked 15th, and was just a few places away from entering the top 10. He was a seeded candidate that everyone had high hopes for. Feng Lin patted Du Ruhan's shoulder. Good luck, little belly. Do well in the court examination and strive to rank alongside Lu Lang. Du Ruhan snorted. Why should I go with him? Can't I rank on my own? Also, what's wrong with the two of you? Don't you want to rank on the imperial examination? Du Ruhan's aptitude was considered to be one of the best in the capital. Otherwise, Zhuang Xianji would not have personally spent time and effort to teach him. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were both hardworking geniuses. If they had not met a formidable teacher like Xiao Lulang, the two of them might not even be able to pass the examination. Rank on the imperial examination? The two of them should just forget about it. Du Ruhan saw that the two of them did not have much fighting spirit and hurriedly said, all right, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go and line up. Let's see if the four of us can line up together. Although they could not cheat if they lined up together, it was still a psychological comfort in this unfamiliar and dignified environment. Xiao Lulang did not say anything and silently lined up behind the three of them. Lulang, come to the front. Feng Lin said. Du Ruhan snorted. You only know how to spoil him. Lin Qingye also took a step back to make room for Xiao Lulang. Du Ruhan's mouth twitched. The examination numbers were the same as the court examination, and the seats were the same as well. When the four of them received their examination tickets, they saw two people sitting together. It was Du Ruhan and Xiao Lulang. Digression, he suddenly realized that today's chapter number was also very appropriate. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that cannot be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/113010567. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 250. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. Feng Lin said enviously, I really envy you for being able to sit next to Lulang. Their numbers were connected. If they were not front and back, then they were left and right. Du Ruhan rolled his eyes. What's there to be envious about? If you like it, I'll swap with you. He did not understand. When they were young, he and Feng Lin were the closest. Xiao Lulang was an outsider, and had only lived here for a short time. How did he succeed in pushing him down? Feng Lin said, I want to swap, but I need the examiner's permission. Lin Qingye also showed great envy. He also wanted to sit next to Xiao Lulang. Du Ruhan did not understand. No, what's wrong with you two? Sitting next to him means you can copy his exam papers or something. Feng Lin gave him a look that could only be understood, but not explained. You don't understand. As long as I sit next to Lulang, my heart will be at ease. Lin Qingye also nodded. He felt the same. Feng Lin was from Song County. Although his family lived in the county, his grandparents and family lived in the countryside. To put it bluntly, he was a poor country boy who had never seen the world. The court exam was about to begin. He was about to meet the emperor of Zhao country. Just thinking about it made his legs go weak. Although Lin Qingye was the son of the richest man in Yuzhou, since ancient times, merchants had a low status and were not respected in the world. When the imperial college's students mentioned him, it was mostly because his family was filthy rich. There were even people who said that his ranking was bought with money. In short, Lin Qingye was more afraid of meeting the emperor than Feng Lin. Xiao Lulang looked at the two. Don't think too much. Just take the exam normally. The emperor is not a poisonous snake or a beast. He will not punish the examinees for small matters. Du Ruhan snorted. You haven't seen him before. How do you know? Xiao Luleng did not respond. In fact, he was the one who felt the real pressure. He had a premonition that as long as he entered the palace, he would definitely attract the attention of the emperor. Although he had enough confidence to deal with it, he could not guarantee what the emperor's attitude would be. Feng Lin was also convinced by Du Ruhan. She was always targeting Luleng. He said, all right, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go back. Little Belly, are you going back to the Zhuang family or are you coming with us? We plan to go to Liulong's house to bet on the exam questions. Du Ruhan originally wanted to say that she didn't want to go, but she thought of something and asked, is Jianyang around? Xiao Luleng looked at him coldly. She's not here. Du Ruhan. In the end, Du Ruhan still went. Zhuang Xianji was an old-fashioned man. He would never bet on the exam questions. He believed that whether a person could pass the exam had nothing to do with luck. Therefore, for Du Ruhan to be able to reach where he was today, other than his own excellence, he had indeed put in more effort than ordinary people. Zhuang Xianji never talked about the exam questions, but Du Ruhan was full of knowledge. Gu Jiao wasn't at home today. She had just received a letter from Xuenningxiang. In the letter, Xuenningxiang said that her mother-in-law's health was deteriorating. Xuenningxiang asked her to pass a letter to Zhou Erzwang to see if he could come back to see his mother for the last time. Gu Jiao knew about Xuenningxiang's mother-in-law's health. She was aging normally. All the major organs were failing, and medicine couldn't reverse it. Gu Jiao didn't know much about the situation in the barracks. She wasn't sure if Zhou Erzwang could ask for leave to go home. It was said that Xuenningxiang's mother-in-law could, but hadn't she passed away? Gu Jiao thought about it and decided to go to the barracks. Deputy General who was transferred back to the Hushan barracks. Gu Chongqing was also in this barracks. Gu Jiao didn't bother him. She only asked the guard to pass a message to Zhou Erzwang, saying that she would wait for him outside the barracks. Zhou Erzwang became Deputy General Hu's personal guard. His status was much higher than before, and no one would treat him perfunctorily anymore. The guard went to report. However, Zhou Erzwang was in the middle of training. He was the target of training, so he couldn't leave halfway. The guard asked Gu Jiao to wait. Gu Jiao didn't wait for long. Gu Chongqing came out from inside. Gu Chongqing was also in the middle of training. However, he was the one training others, so it didn't matter if he walked for a while. What a coincidence. Gu Jiao greeted him. Gu Chongqing nodded. How could there be such a coincidence? It was just someone's deliberate plan. Gu Chongqing had already told the guard that if a girl surnamed Gu came to the Hushan barracks, he must be informed. Just now, the guard went to inform Gu Chongqing first, and then went to inform Zhou Erzwang. Gu Chongqing didn't say anything about this. Gu Chongqing saw that she was holding a letter in her hand. He asked, "Are you going to send a letter to Zhou Erzwang?" Gu Jiao nodded. Yes. There's a letter from his family. His mother is seriously ill and hopes to see him for the last time. Can your barracks ask for leave? Of course. Gu Chongqing said lightly. The guard on the side was dumbfounded. Lieutenant, is it really okay for you to lie through your teeth like this? The general of the Hushan barracks was famous for being unreasonable. It was harder for a small guard like Zhou Erzwang to ask for leave than to ascend to the sky. Unless he didn't want to mingle in the barracks, he would be demoted when he came back. Gu Chongqing stretched out his hand. Leave it to me. You go back first and I will tell him. Gu Jiao thought for a moment. Okay. Tell him to go to the medical center before he goes back. I have some things to take back. Gu Chongqing took the letter and watched Gu Jiao get on the carriage. Then he turned around and entered the barracks. Deputy General who was not his subordinate, nor was he his immediate superior. He was General Rant's subordinate, and Deputy General who was General Qin's subordinate. He didn't have many personal relationships with General Qin and Deputy General Hu. He hesitated for a moment, but still went to Deputy General Hu's tent and told him about Zhou Erzwang. My younger sister and his sister-in-law are old friends. He also explained why he helped Zhou Erzwang several times. Deputy General Hu suddenly realized why Zhou Erzwang could ask the heir of the Marquis of Ding and Fu to personally deliver something. It turned out that there was this layer of relationship involved. Zhou Erzwang was a bumpkin from the countryside. His brother and sister-in-law were also countrymen. Their old friends should also be countrymen. Deputy General, who had long heard that the daughter of the Marquis Fu was born with a wrong person, and grew up among the commoners. Presumably, this was her. Gu Chongqing stopped talking about the matter of the family. Deputy General, who also tactfully didn't probe further. He smiled and said, "This boy has been by my side for several years and has suffered a lot. He is bold and careful, and has also performed meritorious deeds. One year, he passed by Yuzhou while delivering a letter for me. In order to not delay the military situation, he didn't pass through the door. It's time to give him a vacation." There was an element of exaggeration in these words. Zhou Erzwang's ability to endure hardships and his bravery to kill the enemy was not fake, but to pass through the door and enter was a bit of a stretch. He had passed by Yuzhou on the waterway, and was about 100 li away from Qingchuan village. Gu Chongqing saw through these superficial words, but didn't expose them. "It was my younger sister who requested this, so I'll have to trouble Lord Hu. His Highness was always talking about his sister. Was their relationship that good?" Growing up in the countryside, they hadn't seen each other many times. Gu Chongqing was famous for his cold face in the military camp. He had never heard him mention any family members, including his 2 younger brothers and the talented daughter in the mansion. He thought that he didn't like his younger brothers and sisters, but his eyes softened when he mentioned his younger sister today. Deputy General Hu touched his nose. Today was really strange. However, Deputy General Hu was flattered that the military commandant, who never made friends with others, took the initiative to come to him. Today's matter was equivalent to Gu Chongqing owing him a favor. As for General Liao Qi, he had a suitable reason. The next day, Zhou Erzwang carried his luggage and went to the medical center. "Excuse me, is Gu Jiao's mother here?" he asked shopkeeper Wang. Shopkeeper Wang looked at Gu Jiao, who was checking the medicine cabinet, and said, "Miss Gu, someone is looking for you. These medicinal materials are a little damp. Take them out to dry." Gu Jiao ordered the medicine boy and turned to the counter. "Who is looking for me?" Shopkeeper Wang pointed to Zhou Erzwang. Zhou Erzwang looked at Gu Jiao stunned. This is Jianyang? She was different from what he remembered. Even if Xue Ningxiang repeatedly emphasized in the letter that Gu Jiao's illness had been cured and she was a normal girl, Zhou Erzwang still didn't associate the girl in front of him with the little fool in his memory. The difference was too big. If there was any feature that hadn't changed, it would probably be the birthmark on her face. Zhou Erzwang? Gu Jiao guessed the other person's identity. "Ah yes. I'm Zhou Erzwang." Zhou Erzwang awkwardly came back to his senses. He had learned some manners when he was with Deputy General Hu. It was very impolite to stare at people like this. Gu Jiao didn't mind. She looked at the bundle on his back and asked, "Are you going to set off?" Zhou Erzwang said, "Yes, Deputy General Hu has a task for me. I have to deliver a letter to Governor Liu in Yuzhou. I have to personally deliver it to Governor Liu. Deputy General Hu allowed me to go home after delivering the letter." It sounded good. This was a task, so it was better to go home on the way. It was better than simply asking for leave. Gu Jiao didn't know that this was the result of Gu Chongqing's intervention. She said to Zhou Erzwang, "Wait a minute. I have something to ask you to bring back." Okay. Gu Jiao went back to the small courtyard and took out a big bundle. She told him in detail what was for Xue Ningxiang, what was for Dean Li, and what was for Luo Lijing. Finally, she gave Zhou Erzwang a bundle of traveling expenses. Zhou Erzwang hurriedly refused. "You usually give me this and that. It's enough. I can't take any more of your traveling expenses. Besides, I'm going to carry out a task this time. Deputy General, who gave me some money. He even gave a lot of money. It was all thanks to Gu Chongqing." However, Deputy General Hu didn't let him know. He insisted on not accepting it. Gu Jiao didn't force him. "Okay. Be careful." "Oh. I'll go now." Zhou Erzwang suddenly felt lucky that he didn't bully Jianyang when he was young. He was quite magnanimous when he met her, but he was quite surprised. Zhou Erzwang walked away, but he couldn't help but look back. The Imperial College wasn't on vacation these days, But the candidates who were going to participate in the court examination didn't go to class. They were all resting at home or in their bedrooms. There wasn't much content in the court examination. It only tested 1 or 2 subjects. It wasn't as difficult as the previous exams. It mainly depended on the parties and the emperor's preferences. At this point, everyone knew how strong they were. There wasn't much point in cramming at the last minute. It was better to relax and maintain a good state. Xiao Lulang didn't go to class at the Imperial College. He only went to pick up little Jing Kong when school was over. This afternoon he had a Kuju class. There was a small Kuju competition. The class was delayed for a while. When little Jing Kong came out, it was already dark. Xiao Lulang looked at the little guy's sweaty face and handed him a handkerchief in disdain. "Wipe it yourself." Little Jing Kong pouted. "Jiao Jiao always helps me wipe it." Xiao Lulang, wipe it yourself." Little Jing Kong shamelessly said. "I'm tired. I'm so tired." "Okay, you're tired." Xiao Lulang raised his eyebrows, carried the little guy over, and wiped his sweat. Then the two of them walked back. Coincidentally, the carriage from the palace that came to pick up Qin Shiyu also arrived. The curtain was lifted, and a beautiful figure walked out of the carriage. Who else could it be but the Crown Princess? The Crown Princess usually didn't get out of the carriage. Today, she was bored out of her wits and wanted to get some fresh air. Unexpectedly, she bumped into Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang wasn't wearing the Imperial College's uniform. Instead, he was wearing a simple but elegant white robe. The Crown Princess froze. The Crown Princess had seen Xiao Lulang from afar in the carriage before. It was completely different from up close. At that time, it was just a blurry side profile. Now it was a full frontal view. For a moment, she seemed to see the little Duke again. However, he seemed to be more beautiful. He had a youthful and reserved temperament that was between a teenager and a man. One couldn't look away from him. The two female officials were also stunned. They were also stunned by Xiao Liulang's appearance. But soon, the three of them noticed little Jing Kong beside Xiao Lulang. The Crown Princess had seen little Jing Kong before. He, Qin Shiyu, and the Minister of War's grandson, Su Zhozhou, had beaten up Prince Liang Guoyu's son. She heard that he was a commoner. Was he related to this person? Was this person really someone who looked similar to the young Marquis? Little Jing Kong was on the other side of Xiao Lulang. He was blocked by Xiao Lulang, so he didn't see the Crown Princess. Xiao Lulang didn't seem to see him either. He held little Jing Kong's hand and walked past the Crown Princess without looking sideways. The Crown Princess's gaze followed him. She turned around and looked at his back as he walked away with his cane. Suddenly, she asked the female official beside her, "You said last time, who took the commoner's child away?" The female official bowed and said, "Crown Princess, it was Marquis Xianping." The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/112984432. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. Chapter 251. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. After the Crown Princess received Qin Shiyu, she didn't immediately return to the palace. Instead, she took Qin Shiyu to Marquis Xuanping's estate. It wasn't convenient for her to visit the Marquis's estate, but Qin Shiyu was Marquis Xuanping's nephew. It was only right for him to visit Marquis Xianping. Unfortunately, Marquis Xianping wasn't in the estate today. He was secretly stirring up trouble with the emperor and the old Marquis again. The Crown Princess wasn't discouraged, but Steward Lu was in the estate. He was Marquis Xuanping's trusted aide, and had been running around for Marquis Xianping for the past few years. He was only summoned back by Marquis Xianping last year. If there was anyone who knew Marquis Xuanping's affairs like the back of their hand, it would be Chang Jing and Steward Liu. Qin Chuyu was having a great time eating in the carriage. I think I dropped my hairpin. I'll go down and look for it. Do you want me to go with you? No need. The Crown Princess smiled gently. Qin Chuyu nodded and continued to eat. The Crown Princess got off the carriage and went to another carriage. She saw Steward Liu waiting there. She didn't beat around the bush and asked directly, Marquis, do you know a child called Jing Kong? Jing Kong? Steward Liu found the name familiar. The Crown Princess continued, he's a student from the Imperial College's prodigy class. He's 4 years old this year, and is friends with His Highness the 7th Prince. Steward Liu said, Ah, I remember now. However, it wasn't because of His Highness the 7th Prince, but because of that student from the Imperial College's prodigy class. Wasn't he the young master's brother-in-law? Steward Liu asked. Crown Princess, are you here to ask about that child? The Crown Princess stared at Steward Liu. Do you know that he has someone who looks a lot like the young Marquis? You've seen him. Steward Liu was very surprised, but when he thought about it, he wasn't too surprised. Little young master was studying at the Imperial College, and His Highness the 7th Prince was also studying at the Imperial College. If the Crown Princess frequently went to fetch His Highness the 7th Prince, wouldn't she encounter little young master? Who is he? The Crown Princess asked. Steward Liu hesitated for a moment, before telling the truth. He is the Marquis's illegitimate son. Surprise flashed across the Crown Prince consort's eyes. Illegitimate child? Steward Liu sighed. That's right. Didn't the Marquis go to Jiangnan to control the flood one year? That year, the Marquis fell in love with a woman in Song County, and the young master is their child. The Crown Princess said thoughtfully, I've never heard the Marquis mention it before. Steward Liu sighed again. The Marquis only just found out. The Marquis summoned me back to the capital to investigate the young master's whereabouts. However, the young master seemed to have some misunderstandings about the Marquis. He thought that the Marquis had abandoned him and his mother, so he refused to acknowledge the Marquis. Don't tell anyone about this. The Crown Princess paused and nodded. I understand. I will keep it a secret for the Marquis. After all, it was not something to be proud of. The Crown Prince consort didn't say anything else and turned to board the carriage. Was it because they were biological brothers that they looked so similar? But why did he feel that something was wrong? The Crown Prince consort brought Qin Chuyu back to the palace. When they arrived at the palace gates, they ran into the Crown Prince who had just returned from the Ministry of Rites. The negotiations between the Liang and the Zhao were very successful. The emperor and the ministers believed that the Crown Prince and the Crown Prince consort contributed a lot. They treated the Liang envoys very well, and didn't make any more mistakes like burning the pleasure boats. The emperor greatly praised the couple, and let the Crown Prince and the Ministry of Rites host the court examination this time. The Crown Prince was very focused. These days he went to the Ministry of Rites to study whenever he had time. He didn't make arbitrary decisions. Instead, he humbly asked for advice and received a lot of praise from the Ministry of Rites. Today he had just been praised by the Minister of Rites and was in a good mood. When he saw the Crown Prince consort and Qin Chuyu, he lifted the curtain of his carriage and said to them, Linlang, let 7th brother return to the Eastern Palace. Come with me. I want to go too. Qin Chuyu instantly felt that the dessert in his hand didn't taste good. The Crown Prince said, Go back and do your homework. Qin Chuyu's mouth twitched. The Crown Prince consort comforted him gently. Do your homework first. I'll bring you osmanthus cake tonight. The palace also had osmanthus cake. Qin Chuyu was sick of the palace's cakes. He always felt that the ones outside were more delicious. Qin Chuyu said slowly, Okay. Remember to come back early. Qin Chuyu was brought back to the Eastern Palace by the palace servants. The Crown Prince consort got into the Crown Prince's carriage. The Crown Prince's travels were very low-key. The carriage didn't look big and only had 2 horses. However, the interior of the carriage was very luxurious. The Crown Prince held the Crown Prince consort's hand and couldn't hide his smile. Linlang, did you forget what day it is today? The Crown Prince consort was slightly stunned. Then she lowered her head and smiled. How could I forget such an important day? 10 years ago today, His Highness and I met at Zuiyan Tavern. I was 10 years old, and the Crown Prince was 12. Every year on this day, His Highness would bring me to Zuiyan Tavern. The Crown Prince squeezed her hand. The first time I saw you, I felt that you would definitely be my Crown Prince consort in the future. The Crown Prince consort smiled with a hint of shyness. The Crown Prince's eyes were burning. His voice was hoarse. I suddenly regret bringing you out. Dusk was setting in the west, and the sky was a flirtatious orange-red. The capital in April wasn't so cold anymore. There was even a hint of warmth in the evening breeze. Little Jing Kong was held by Xiao Lulang as he skipped down the alley. That's right, he skipped down the alley. He rarely gave Xiao Lulang face, unless Xiao Lulang was willing to take him to the medical center to find Gu Jiao. Little Jing Kong had already showered and changed into dry clothes. He smelled good. He could give Jiao Jiao a hug. You're not 3 years old anymore. Can't you be more mature? Xiao Yolang's hand was almost pulled off by the little guy. Little Jing Kong spread his other hand. But 4 years old isn't too old. The princess consort said that I'm still a baby. Xiao Lulang gave him a contemptuous look. You're in charge of the sky, the earth, and the air every day. You even care if your brother-in-law gets first place in the exam. How can you say something like that? Baby. Xiao Lulang was thunderstruck. Little Jing Kong didn't receive his brother-in-law's look. He was in high spirits and started to sing. I'm the Mount Tai next door, catch the vine of love. Ow ow ow, don't be afraid of my Lulang. Xiao Yolang's body trembled. Shut up. Little monk. I want to eat that. Little Jing Kong suddenly stopped his beautiful throat slitting and pointed at an alley that was emitting the aroma of sesame seeds as he spoke. Xiao Lulang chuckled. That's an alley. You can eat it if you want. Little Jing Kong. Little Jing Kong was furious. Don't you smell the aroma? It's the smell of Jiao Jiao's favorite food. Gu Jiao loved to eat the jerky made by Xiao Yolang's classmate. The jerky was sprinkled with sesame seeds, but Xiao Lulang didn't smell it. Xiao Lulang only vaguely smelled it when they passed through the alley. He looked at Little Jing Kong strangely. Do you have a dog's nose? Why are you so sensitive? Little Jing Kong snorted. It's obviously your nose that's not very good. Xiao Lulang walked half a street before he found the sesame biscuit shop. Xiao Yulang's mouth twitched. You call this a bad nose? Even a dog can't smell it, right? This was a newly opened sesame biscuit shop. Today was the first day it officially opened and business was good. Xiao Lulang led Little Jing Kong to line up for a while and bought 2 boxes of freshly baked sesame biscuits. Little Jing Kong counted carefully and made sure that everyone in his family had 1. Jiao Jiao had 2. Then he was satisfied and was about to leave with the boxes. Just as he turned around, he bumped into Su Songtang, who also came to buy sesame biscuits. Jing Kong. Songtang. The 2 children were especially excited. They stood beside the shop and turned into little loudspeakers at the same time, chattering away. He didn't know what a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old could talk about. Xiao Lulang was speechless as he looked at the 2 children who were chatting happily. For a moment, he regretted bringing them along. Su Songtang grabbed Little Jing Kong's hand and pointed to the restaurant diagonally opposite. That's my cousin's restaurant. My cousin is upstairs. I'll take you to see him. He's always wanted to see you. Brother-in-law, can I go with you? Little Jing Kong looked at Xiao Lulang eagerly. He was asking for help, so he began to act cute. Xiao Lulang took a deep breath and said helplessly, I'll wait for you here. Little Jing Kong handed the box to Xiao Lulang. Then, Su Songtang ran to Zuiyan restaurant diagonally opposite. Beside the sesame shop was a study room. Xiao Lulang had nothing to do, so it just so happened that he ran out of ink ingots at home. He planned to buy more the next day, so since he ran into it today, he might as well buy it. Xiao Lulang entered the study room and asked the shopkeeper for ink sticks. The shopkeeper said, the high-quality ink sticks are inside. You can choose by yourself. Xiao Lulang went in to choose ink sticks. The room was very narrow. There were 2 rows of shelves. It was difficult to turn around once you entered. However, the ink sticks here were indeed of excellent quality. Xiao Lulang was very satisfied and picked a few pieces. At this moment, the Crown Princess passed by the door. She came to Zuyin restaurant to eat with the Crown Prince. She smelled the aroma of sesame cakes upstairs, and thought that Qin Shiyu might like them. So, she came down to pick a box of sesame cakes for him. However, she saw a familiar figure when she passed by the study room. She hurried in. "Madam, what are you?" Before the shopkeeper finished speaking, the Crown Princess walked over. Xiao Lulang finished picking out the ink sticks, and was about to leave when a figure walked in. The moment the figure walked in, the first row of shelves suddenly fell down, slamming the door shut and blocking it. Digression. Jiao. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/112981898. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. Chapter 252. The newest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels to read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. This situation was out of everyone's expectations. Even the Crown Princess stilled slightly. The moment the bookshelf fell, she instinctively took a few steps forward to avoid the unexpected disaster. But this room was narrow to begin with. After taking a few steps forward, she almost collided with Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang was the first to hear the sound and knew that someone had entered. Following that, the bookshelf collapsed and hit the door. There were no oil lamps or windows in the room. The moment the door closed, the room plunged into endless darkness. He didn't see who it was, but he instinctively took a step back, almost pressing himself against the wall. Xiao Lulang had not been unapproachable for a day or two. From the moment Feng Lin met him, he found that he had a serious obsession with social cleanliness. However, Feng Lin's skin was thicker, and he always moved closer to Xiao Lulang. The Crown Princess was slightly embarrassed by the other's action of avoiding suspicion. Usually, when men encountered this kind of situation, wouldn't they be the hero saving the beauty? Of course, as the high and mighty Crown Princess, she would not allow herself to have any physical contact with other men. But it was one matter for her not to allow it, and another matter for others not to do so. The fragrance of a woman's rouge floated in the room. It was not the cheap rouge on the market, but the best incense from the palace. Xiao Liulang's hand that was holding the ink stick paused. While there were no lights in the room, after his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he could rely on the weak light that came through the crack in the door to open his vision a little. The other was wearing a pearl-white gauze dress. When the gauze fell, the gold and silver threads could be faintly seen in the weak light. This was shark gauze that was worth gold per inch. Supposedly, even if 100 fisherwomen worked together for a month, they would not be able to make half a bolt. This was an exaggeration, but shark gauze was a rare treasure of the palace. Palace maids did not have the right to wear it, and normal concubines did not have the right to wear it. The Ministry of Internal Affairs usually only gave it to the mistress of the inner palace, the Empress Dowager or the Empress. The Empress Dowager was no longer in the palace, and the Empress could not leave the palace. The woman's figure was graceful, like a mermaid breaking out of the water under the moonlight. It was a young woman. The room was so quiet that even breathing could be heard clearly. Xiao Lulang did not speak, nor did he take a step forward to strike up a conversation or salute. "Who are you?" After a moment of hesitation, the Crown Prince Consort was the first to speak. Hearing this voice, Xiao Lulang tightened his grip on the ink stick in his hand, but he still did not speak. The Crown Princess thought to herself, could it really not be Aheng? If it was Aheng, how could he not recognize her voice? She paused for a moment and tried to walk toward him. However, she didn't know if it was intentional or not, but another row of bookshelves suddenly fell down and happened to lie between the two of them. Since she couldn't ask and couldn't pass, the Crown Prince consort had completely given up. The two of them didn't stay in the room for too long. The shopkeeper noticed that something was amiss, and hurriedly called a waiter over to pry open the door. Unfortunately, the door was blocked, and it wouldn't be that easy to pry it open. The shopkeeper was also distressed about his own door and floor, so he did not dare cause too much trouble. Unknowingly, the opening of the door was delayed. As for the Crown Prince, he waited upstairs for a long time, but did not see the Crown Prince consort return. He and the Crown Prince consort had come out to be alone before, and did not bring any attendants. There was only a carriage driver and 2 hidden guards that were secretly protecting him. He thought for a bit, then decided to go look for her himself. The Crown Prince consort said that she had gone to buy sesame cakes, but he did not see her in front of the sesame shop. Thus he asked the carriage driver, "Did you see the Crown Prince consort?" The carriage driver said, replying to Master, "The Crown Prince consort went to the study." The Crown Prince frowned. What did she go to the study for? His suspicions were just suspicions, but the Crown Prince still strode into the study. Only after he entered did he find that something had happened in the study. His mind moved, and he walked forward, asking without getting angry, "Who was locked inside?" The shopkeeper saw that the other party had a powerful aura and was dressed in extraordinary clothes, so he respectfully said, "I did not see clearly, it was a madam." "Out of the way," the Crown Prince said in a heavy voice. Everyone was intimidated by his presence, and pushed to the side. The Crown Prince lightly knocked on the door and said, "Linlang, are you inside?" In the darkness, the Crown Prince consort turned around and looked at the bookshelf in front of her. She then looked at the tightly blocked door and said, "I am here." The Crown Prince pushed the door, but there was no response. The shopkeeper said, "It's no use, the bookshelf inside fell and blocked the door." The Crown Prince said with a frown, "Why aren't you prying it open?" But we can't pry it open?" The shopkeeper wanted to smash it open with his axe, but he was worried that he would accidentally injure the person inside. The Crown Prince would not use his hidden guards unless he had no other choice, but he could not care so much now. He was worried that something would happen to the Crown Prince consort inside. He had the hidden guards appear. The 2 hidden guards were both palace experts, and a mere door was not a problem for them. The 2 quickly took down the door, and removed the first shelf that was blocking the door. The Crown Prince hurriedly reached out to the Crown Prince consort. The Crown Prince consort took his hand and walked out of the shattered ink ingots on the ground. The Crown Prince looked her up and down and asked worriedly, "Are you okay?" The Crown Prince consort shook her head slightly. "I'm fine. Just now, the sesame cake was waiting, so I came to choose a few ink ingots for little Chi." Qin Chuyu could not use the Imperial Palace's ink ingots as it would easily expose his identity. The Crown Prince did not suspect her and said to her, "Leave this kind of thing to the servants. Don't do it yourself. If something happens to you, I will be sad." The Crown Prince consort smiled guiltily. "I made you worry, it's my fault." The Crown Prince said, "It's good that you are fine, let's go." The Crown Prince did not know that there was another person inside. The Crown Prince consort looked out of the corner of her eye, but did not say anything. The Crown Prince took the Crown Prince consort's hand, and threw an ingot to the shopkeeper before walking out of the study. After the shopkeeper received the ingot, he did not feel sorry for the door, and the room full of broken bookshelves and ink ingots. He beamed with joy and said, "Young master, take care. Madam, take care." As he spoke, he turned and scratched his head. He looked at the messy room and said, "Huh? I remember that a scholar went in just now. Huh? Why did this bookshelf also fall? It shouldn't be." He had fixed this bookshelf properly and did not put anything heavy on it. How did it fall? Just as he was thinking, Xiao Lulang bent down and walked out from under another toppled bookshelf. The shopkeeper was stunned. There really is someone." Xiao Lulang did not say anything. He paid for the ink ingots and gave some extra money. The shopkeeper was about to ask when he said, "Loss." The loss of the second bookshelf. The shopkeeper was stunned. After little Jing Kong and Su Zhozhou met his relatives, they went back to the sesame cake shop to meet up with Xiao Lulang, accompanied by Su Zhozhou and the servants of the Su family. Little Jing Kong was a careful child. He quickly noticed that there was something wrong with his brother-in-law's hand. He stopped and looked seriously at Xiao Liulong's right hand, which was hanging in his wide sleeves. "What's wrong with your hand?" "It's nothing," Xiao Lulang said lightly. Little Jing Kong did not believe him. He grabbed Xiao Liulong's sleeve and saw a red and swollen hand. His eyes instantly widened. "It's all swollen. How did you get it? Does it hurt?" Xiao Lulang suddenly smiled and pinched his little face. "You care about me so much." Little Jing Kong slapped away his hand that was messing around with his face and said seriously, "I'm just worried that you won't pass the exam. Jiao Jiao bet that you'll be the top scorer. I bet all my money on you." Xiao Lulang. As soon as they arrived at the medical center, Little Jing Kong found Gu Jiao, who was drying medicinal herbs in the backyard. He started to complain about his bad brother-in-law. "He hurt himself when I wasn't looking at him." Gu Jiao put down the medicinal herbs in her hand and looked at Xiao Lulang, who was walking over. "Where are you hurt? Let me take a look." Then she said to Little Jing Kong, "Go and play with Sister Jiangli, okay?" Little Jing Kong obediently went to find Little Jiangli. Gu Jiao brought Xiao Lulang back to her courtyard. There was a consultation room in the medical center, but it was for outsiders. He was different. Xiao Lulang had been to the medical center several times, but he had never entered Gu Jiao's room. It was not like a study room with simple furniture. There was even a small bed behind the screen for her to rest on. The two of them sat outside the screen. The screen was not a landscape or flower or bird screen that ordinary girls liked. It was a plain light blue without any patterns. Her preferences were always a little different. The two of them lived under the same roof, but for some reason, this room that belonged to Gu Jiao alone made Xiao Lulang feel as if he had broken into her boudoir. Xiao Liulong's expression changed slightly. Gu Jiao rolled up his sleeves. She did not use a pulse pillow to cushion his wrist. Instead, she directly held his wrist with her hand. His wrist was very swollen. She gently touched the bone. The bone was fine. She pinched the back of his hand. It was also slightly swollen. It should be caused by the extravasated blood on his wrist. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "No," he said. Gu Jiao also checked his fingers. His hand was very beautiful. It was thin, his fingers were slender, and the joints were distinct. His nails were very clean. Even the uninjured wrist was as delicate as jade. If it was in her previous life, it would be the hand of either a surgeon or a pianist. How did he get injured? Gu Jiao was a little angry. Usually at home, she was reluctant to let him do heavy work. She was afraid that he would hurt his hand. "How did you get injured?" she asked. In fact, they rarely asked about these things. When Gu Jiao treated his leg, she did not ask how he got injured. When Gu Jiao was unconscious after being whipped, he did not ask who Gu Jiao was on bad terms with. Although they eventually learned the truth, they did not know it from each other. "The bookshelf was smashed," Xiao Lulang said. "I didn't pay much attention at the time." Gu Jiao looked at his red and swollen wrist and frowned. "Be careful in the future." Xiao Lulang nodded. "Okay." On the first day, he needed to ice it to prevent the extravasated blood from spreading. Gu Jiao took an ice pack from the small medicine box and put it on his wrist. This ice pack did not need to be frozen. It could be crushed into ice. The disadvantage was that it could not be used again. Xiao Lulang had long been accustomed to strange things appearing in her medicine box from time to time. He did not ask where she got the ice. She held his wrist with one hand and put the ice pack on his wrist with the other. She changed the ice pack from time to time. Her expression was very serious and very careful. Xiao Liulong's eyes moved slightly. He reached out his hand and said, "I'll do it myself." Gu Jiao picked up the ice pack and avoided his hand. "No, it's very cold." "Aren't your hands icy cold?" Xiao Lulang stared at her. His wrist was cold and painful, but his heart did not seem to feel it. He opened his mouth and suddenly asked, "Do you treat other patients like this?" "No." Gu Jiao shook her head and carefully put the ice pack on his hand. "I only treat you like this." Xiao Liulong's heart suddenly swelled. There was a strange and strong emotion filling in. In fact, she did not specifically say what she only treated him like, but it made him unable to breathe calmly. The ice pack was probably too cold. Her left hand was completely numb from the cold. She changed the ice pack to her right hand, and used her ice-cold left hand to hold his wrist bones. After changing the ice pack several times, Xiao Liulong's wrist was much less swollen and did not hurt at all. Her hands were so cold that they almost lost feeling. She went to pack things. Xiao Lulang could feel that her movements had slowed down. She closed the medicine box as if nothing had happened. She did not care about it. It was just a pair of cold hands. It was not unprecedented for her body to be frozen stiff in her previous life. However, this time, something that she did not care about was cared for by someone for her. The moment she stood up to take care of the medical supplies, a slender hand reached out and grabbed her cold hand. That hand was slender and white, and had an irresistible strength as it tightly wrapped around her hand. Her cold and painful fingertips suddenly warmed up. Gu Jiao stared blankly at him. He did not look at Gu Jiao. He only silently held her other hand in his. In the blink of an eye, it was the 15th of the 4th month. The small exam before the court examination began. Xiao Lulang left before the sun rose. He sat in the carriage driven by Lu Quan, and arrived at the main entrance of the Imperial Palace. The main entrance of the Imperial Palace had a total of 3 doors. The main door in the middle was large and wide. It was at least 20 feet tall, and there was a side door on each side of the main door. The left door was for the royal family, and the right door was for the officials. Today the examinees used the right door. The examinees were already waiting outside the right door, and they lined up according to their examination numbers. Xiao Lulang and Du Ruhan's examination numbers were the same. Xiao Lulang was 75, and Du Ruhan was 76. Du Ruhan arrived earlier than Xiao Lulang. After greeting Feng Lin and Lin Qingye, it took a long time for Xiao Lulang to arrive. "Why are you so late? I thought you were too timid to come." Du Ruhan was jealous that Xiao Lulang had squeezed out his position in Feng Lin's heart. He would always scold him when he saw him. Xiao Lulang could not be bothered to argue with him, and quietly lined up in front of him. Du Ruhan curled her lips. "Hey, are you nervous? Feng Lin and Lin Qingye are so nervous." Their examination numbers were closer to the front. One was 21, and the other was 37. It was said that they were ahead of Xiao Lulang and Du Ruhan, so the two of them were trembling. Fortunately, the rest of the examinees were trembling as well. There were not many who were not trembling. Firstly, they had never been to the palace before, so they were a little nervous. Secondly, it was especially cold today. It was already the 4th month, and the weather should have been good by now. However, it suddenly rained last night, causing the temperature to plummet. At this moment, there was even a strong wind blowing. Xiao Lulang glanced at him. "Are you nervous?" Du Ruhan snorted. "What do I have to be nervous about?" Xiao Liulong's gaze swept across him. "If you don't tremble, you will be more convincing." When the time was up, the right side door opened. The officials from the Ministry of Rites began to inspect the examinees. After the inspection, a eunuch and an official from the Ministry of Rites would lead the examinees into the Hall of Supreme Harmony in the Imperial Palace. This time there wasn't much of a body search. After all, everyone was no longer an ordinary high scholar. Everyone was a tribute scholar. Even the weakest among them was a grand scholar. What was a scholar? That was a preparatory official of the imperial court. Ai Xiao Liuzi, do you know who that is? Halfway there, Du Ruhan suddenly pulled on Xiao Liulong's sleeve, and used his eyes to signal him to look at a square-faced tributary scholar not far away. Xiao Lulang said indifferently, "How come you talk more than Feng Lin?" The two of them really talked a lot. This was called birds of a feather flocking together. Du Ruhan clicked his tongue. "If you don't want to listen, then forget it." Xiao Lulang actually knew who Du Ruhan was referring to. That was Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson, Yuan Yu. Just now, when he was in line, he heard the officials from the Ministry of Rites greet Yuan Yu and call him Young Master Yuan. The Minister of Rites was Grand Secretary Yuan's disciple, so it was not surprising that he would take care of Yuan Yu. As for the Minister of Dependencies, he was Grand Tutor Zhuang's disciple, so he would most likely favor Royal Prince, and Royal Prince N's exam number was behind Xiao Lulang and Du Ruhan, so Xiao Lulang did not see him. All the examinees took the exam in the main hall of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. There was a mat, a writing desk, and brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone provided by the imperial court. The examinees had to sit and answer the questions. The invigilators were officials from the Ministry of Rights and the Minister of Dependencies. After the examinees listened to the Minister of Rights' instructions and singing, they cupped their hands in salute and began to sit down. The small exam only tested the 8-part essay. This time there was no cut and match question. The question was, the Tao is not far from people. People are far from the Tao, so they must not think of the Tao. This sentence came from the Doctrine of the Mean, Chapter 13. It meant, the Tao is not far from people. If someone pretended to be profound and caused the Tao to be far from people, then they could not practice the Tao. There were many entry points for this question. It could explore the nature and form of the Tao, and it could also delve into the degree and method of practicing the Tao. The examinees were not used to being given such a simple question after going through rounds of cruel childhood examinations, provincial examinations, and metropolitan examinations. Thus, a strange scene appeared in the examination hall. All the examinees looked at the exam papers on the table in confusion, seriously suspecting that the invigilators had given them the wrong answers. The exam begins. The Minister of Rights reminded. The examinees seemed to wake up from a dream. They took out their draft papers and began to solve the questions. If there was no difficulty in this exam, it would probably be the time. There were only 4 hours. However, seeing that the exam questions were not difficult, this amount of time was enough. Even Feng Lin and Lin Qingye did not feel too much pressure. The small exam did not count towards the total score. Its main purpose was not to select talents, but to warm up for the court examination. It was also to learn the etiquette and rules of the examination hall. The Minister of Rights and the Minister of Dependencies worked together to invigilate the exam. Xiao Lulang sat in the second-last seat in the first row. This seat did not attract the attention of the invigilators, but there was a crutch beside him. The Minister of Dependencies immediately noticed the crutch. He asked the eunuch beside him in a low voice, "Who is that?" The eunuch counted Xiao Liulang's exam number, looked at the cards in his hand, and said, "He is a supervisor of the Imperial College." "Why is it a—" The Minister of Dependencies wanted to say, "Why is he a cripple?" Just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he felt that it was inappropriate. Since the court had relaxed the requirements for the imperial examinations, then as an official of the court, he should accept it. However, the Minister of Dependencies could not help but look at Xiao Lulang. This was not his fault. Since the beginning of the court, there had not been a cripple who had come to take the imperial examinations, especially those who had made it to the court examination. There were many who had scars on their faces. Could this kid have scars on his face as well? Wouldn't that scare His Majesty? The Minister of Dependencies decided to take a look. If he was really ugly, then no matter what, he would drop him. At the very least, he could not present his exam paper to the emperor. They could not afford to frighten the emperor. As a result, the Minister of Dependencies walked up to Xiao Lulang to take a look. With a single glance, he was completely dumbfounded. Xiao Lulang calmly finished his exam paper. He did not hand it in early, because he could not leave even if he handed it in. In the afternoon, they studied the rules and etiquette before the emperor. To be honest, there were not many students from humble families among the 210 tributary scholars. It wasn't that they did not work hard enough, but rather that their educational resources and system were far inferior to those of noble families. If a family wanted to raise a grand scholar, they would often have to put in a great deal of effort. For example, the children of the Yuan family and the Zhuang family had great scholars like Grand Secretary Yuan and Grand Tutor Zhuang as their teachers. Just a few words of advice from them would be enough for the children of the family to benefit greatly. Even a Jiangnan scholar like Wang Yuan, who came from a scholarly family and had 2 grand scholars in his family, could also provide him with good guidance. It was difficult for the children of humble families to make a name for themselves. Most of the tributary scholars this time were examinees with a bit of family background. They had hired specialists to teach them some etiquette and rules at home. As a result, Everyone's progress in learning the etiquette before the emperor was very fast. At around 5 p.m., the examinees finished learning. They took their examination cards and left the imperial palace. Feng Lin did not learn much, so he asked Lin Qingye. Lin Qingye originally knew, but after Feng Lin asked, he suddenly became uncertain. Lulang. Feng Lin looked at Xiao Lulang pleadingly. Xiao Lulang demonstrated it to the two of them in the carriage. Du Ruhan patted his fan and said, Xiao Liuzi, how can your etiquette be so good? At first glance, he did not look like a poor boy from the countryside. He was not bragging, but Xiao Liulang's etiquette was not worse than Royal Prince Anne's. Where did this boy learn to have the temperament of a noble son from the capital? Xiao Lulang said indifferently. Won't I know if I watch more? You brat, forget it. Du Ruhan waved his fan and did not say what he wanted to ask. It's getting late, I'm leaving. Do you want me to send you back? Feng Lin said. No need, we have a carriage. Feng Lin and Lin Qingye were in the same carriage, while Xiao Lulang was in Lu Quan's carriage. All right, then let's not meet for the next 2 days. Stay at home and wait for the examination. Du Ruhan said and turned to leave the carriage. Feng Lin said to Xiao Lulang, Lulang, we're leaving too. Xiao Lulang could see that he was nervous and said, Don't think about anything. Her Majesty is not a poisonous snake or a ferocious beast. Even if something goes wrong, she will not do anything to you. Just focus on the examination. The same goes for you. He looked at Lin Qingye. The court examination does not test 8-part essay. It only tests on strategy questions. You have improved a lot in this year, so just focus on the questions. Lin Qingye had been learning from Xiao Lulang for so long. But Xiao Lulang had always been a strict teacher and had never praised him. It seemed that no matter how hard he tried, he could not satisfy Xiao Lulang. But just now, Xiao Lulang said that he had improved a lot. Lin Qingye was even more efficient than when he was praised by the teachers of the Imperial College. Xiao Lulang nodded. Don't study for the next 2 days. Focus on the examination. Lin Qingye, who had been praised, got off the carriage with high spirits and sat in his own carriage with Feng Lin. For the next 2 days, they stayed at home and did not go out. On the 17th, the court examination officially began. That day, all the colleges in the capital were on holiday, including the Imperial College. More than 200 examinees were waiting outside the palace gates before daybreak. One of the examinees had left his examination token at home and was so anxious that he almost fainted. Fortunately, the owner of the inn he was staying at discovered the token and personally rushed over to deliver it to him. Although the court examination did not discriminate against candidates, if one did not take the examination, they would still be discriminated against. The inspection for the court examination was stricter. Some of the parents of the candidates who lived in the capital also came. However, they were not allowed to get close to the palace and were stopped a few hundred meters away. Imperial court officials like Grand Tutor Zhuang and Grand Secretary Yuan were exceptions. The two of them were here to attend the imperial court, and they also gave their children a few instructions. The other candidates saw this and immediately felt a huge pressure. Do your best and don't think about anything else. Grand Tutor Zhuang said to Prince N, who was at the end of the line. Prince N's number was second to last. However, because of Grand Tutor Zhuang's appearance, it caused quite a commotion. Almost all the candidates looked at him. Prince N smiled. Grandfather, don't worry. Grand Tutor Zhuang smoothed Prince N's sleeves. This was telling him to focus on the examination and leave the rest to him. With Prince N's ability and Grand Tutor Zhuang's influence, why would he worry about not getting first place? As for the potential threat, he had 100 ways to make them lose their exam. At this moment, the candidates were extremely envious. They envied Prince N's talent and family background. Grand Tutor Zhuang could not stay for too long and turned to leave. Suddenly, a tall and majestic figure approached him. Oh, isn't this Grand Tutor Zhuang? What a coincidence. Who else could this annoying voice be other than Marquis Xianping? Grand Tutor Zhuang felt a headache whenever he saw him. The person he hated the most in the imperial court was Marquis Xianping. Grand Tutor Zhuang held the ceremonial tablet in his hand and said faintly, I should be the one saying this. The sun is not even high up in the sky. Why is Marquis Xianping here? Everyone knew that Marquis Xianping never attended court early. There were many people here and Marquis Xianping was still polite. He said elegantly and calmly, I am the same as you. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted. The same as him? What was the same as him? Was he also here to send his children to the court examination? Hahu. The two useless bastard sons in his family? Marquis Xianping ignored Grand Tutor Zhuang's disdain. He curled his lips and strode forward. Marquis Xianping's aura attracted everyone's attention. The candidates wanted to look but did not dare. They were so nervous that they did not even dare to breathe loudly. Marquis Xianping stopped beside Xiao Lulang. He raised his hand and seriously and solemnly straightened Xiao Liulang's clothes. Digression. Are there any more monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/112954036. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 253. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are available here. Everyone was dumbfounded by Marquis Xianping's actions. What was going on? The great Marquis Xianping was helping an examinee tidy up his clothes? This was not as simple as ordinary affection. Usually, only people who were very close to him or someone who valued him would do this. Xiao Liulang's reputation in the capital could not be considered great, but in the imperial examination circle, he was completely famous. He came from a poor family, but in the spring examination he was tied with Jun Wang for first place. This made him famous. In addition, he was not good at walking, which made people pay more attention to him. He was very easy to recognize. After all, there was no second cripple participating in the court examination. Most people's first reaction when they saw him was, isn't this brat too good looking? Their second reaction was, how could he be a cripple? And after these two reactions, this little cripple actually passed the Huiyuan exam? Everyone felt pity for him. Envy, disdain, in short, their emotions were very complicated. But no one present expected him to enter Marquis Xianping's eyes. That's right. Even though Marquis Xianping had shown that he valued Xiao Lulang, no one guessed that they were father and son. Everyone muttered to themselves. Wasn't Marquis Xianping a general? Didn't he look down on those pedantic scholars the most? How many outstanding talents had appeared in the past spring examinations? Why didn't Marquis Xianping favor any of them? What part of this little cripple moved Marquis Xianping to make Marquis Xianping, who never went to court early, get up early to send him to the examination hall? Xiao Lulang still did not change. There was no joy or gratitude. Marquis Xianping was not angry, and continued to tidy his clothes. Marquis Xianping had never been a very good father. He spent most of his time in the military camp and paid little attention to his son at home. Xiao Heng was able to become the most talented youth in the capital. Other than his talent, it was mostly due to Princess Xinyang's efforts. Princess Xinyang was both a loving and strict mother. She had studied poetry and books since she was a child. She hoped that her son would also be full of wisdom in the future. She taught him with all her heart. Thus, Xiao Heng was born in the eyes of the world. When Xiao Heng was very young, he would wait at the entrance of the residence every day and recite poems to him. But he always came back very late, and Xiao Heng would fall asleep on the doorstep. Otherwise, Xiao Heng would recite it. He listened perfunctorily and nodded. Xiao Heng was very angry and said, "You didn't listen, you didn't listen." I clearly memorized 3 words wrongly. The young and impetuous Marquis Xianping could not lose face in front of his son. Thus, to cover up his lack of talent, he would bluff and get angry at his son. What's so great about reciting poems? A real man should go into battle, kill the enemy, and protect the country. Can you hold a gun? Or can you wield a knife? Xiaoheng was very hurt. Before Marquis Xianping had learned how to be a good father, Xiaoheng had died in that fire. Only he knew how much regret he had. Marquis Xianping looked at the expressionless Xiao Lulang and was momentarily absent-minded. He quickly came back to his senses and patted Xiao Liulang's shoulder, then pinched his sleeve. Go in. This was the first time he had sent someone into the examination hall. He did not have much experience and did not know what to do. He had learned from Grand Tutor Zhuang and Grand Secretary Yuan when he got off the carriage. Xiao Lulang entered without looking back. Behind Xiao Lulang, Du Ruhan was a bit dumbfounded. He was the person closest to Marquis Xianping apart from Xiao Lulang. Marquis Xianping was taller and more handsome than the rumors said. His every movement was noble, and his gaze was deep and dignified. This was a man who did not fear the collapse of heaven and earth when he stood beside him. His aura was too strong. Du Ruhan felt like he was about to suffocate. But such a strong man actually stopped for Xiao Lulang and treated Xiao Lulang like a parent. Du Ruhan was about to go crazy. He was really jealous. What kind of dog's hit luck did this guy have? Xiao Lulang did not know that he was receiving Du Ruhan's jealous eye rolls the entire way. They entered the main hall of Taihe Palace and found their seats according to their exam numbers. It was no different from the small exam. The court exam only lasted for 1 day and only tested 1 subject. The exam papers were handed out at 7 in the morning and collected at 5 in the afternoon. They could hand in their papers early, but they were not allowed to eat in the middle. They were also not allowed to bring their own dry rations. Examinees who had passed the provincial exams all had good physiques. They would not suffer from hunger for a day, but they were worried that they would not perform well. After all, the emperor was personally invigilating today. The emperor would only come after the morning court. But no one knew how long the morning court would last. What if the emperor suddenly appeared behind them while they were writing? That scene was quite scary just thinking about it. After a series of greetings, the exam officially began. The officials of the Ministry of Rites handed out the exam papers to each examinee. The Minister of Rites, the Minister of Ceremonies, and 4 cabinet scholars sat on 2 stools at the front of the exam room. There was a table and chair in the middle, which should have been reserved for the emperor. Other than the invigilators, there were also imperial guards and eunuchs on duty. Thus, even though there was no separate exam room, it was still very difficult to cheat in front of so many pairs of eyes. Moreover, the policy questions were not fixed questions like the scriptures. There was not much point in cheating. Xiao Lulang quickly received his exam paper. This was a question set by the emperor. Ask the emperor's policy and the emperor's heart. How to govern the country. After experiencing the question of removing the vassals and the virtuous, this question was much more gentle. At least, no matter how one answered it, it would not be wrong. At most, the content of the question would not be practical. It could be boastful, as long as the writing was flamboyant enough. It could also be to the point, with clear flags. It was true that the emperor was selecting talents, but these examinees had never been an official before. To put it bluntly, they were all armchair strategists. The emperor did not expect a court exam to solve a problem that the civil and military officials could not solve. Otherwise, why would he need so many experienced court officials? What the emperor really wanted to see was the mindset of an examinee. A prime minister could hold a boat. The bigger a person's mindset, the wider their future path. Most of the examinees did not realize this point. They were all racking their brains, scratching their ears and cheeks, thinking of new ways to govern the country. Xiao Lulang was not in a hurry to write. He first wrote a draft in his mind. He did not have the habit of writing drafts, but drafts were an important piece of evidence when checking the results. He would usually leave 1 or 2 drafts. After about 2 hours, he deliberated over his wording, deleting and deleting. After about 2 hours, he began to answer the exam paper. This was a policy question. Before answering, One had to be matched by an official to show that one was answering the emperor's question. The official matches. When the official hears that the emperor is in control of the world, there must be a manager of real governance, and then can restrain the crowd, intricate 10,000 machines, and have a rule of Yong 11. There must be a solid heart to advocate, and then can temper the 100 workers, shake up the affairs of the common people, and have a reason to achieve prosperity. Establishing rules and regulations, enforcing laws and regulations, suspending the various images on the way's surface, placing them in the middle of the command armor, first in the rocky corridors, then scattered in the various departments and hundreds of manors, reaching to the corners of the seas of the commanderies. Passing through the latitude of the great and the great, there is nothing not prepared, everything is strictly guarded, there is no leak. What is a solid heart? Shake up laziness, encourage shrewdness. It originates from the depths of the abyss, rises in the midst of the secret, begins in the palace, the wind in the chariot, pouring into the wilderness of the frontier, falling into harmony, the mind, the body, the shape, the bones, the consort. Xiao Lulang mainly emphasized the importance of governing the country according to law and the implementation of evidence. Laws and regulations must permeate the people, and the voice of the people must be heard by the heavens. At the same time, he also proposed to use Confucianism to educate the people, vigorously punish corrupt officials, and let the national treasury be filled. Of course, he also emphasized that the emperor was the son of heaven, and everything he did was ordered by the heavens. Setting up an official position was the emperor appointing a virtuous person on behalf of the heavens. Getting rid of an evil person was the emperor crusading against a sinful person on behalf of the heavens. Xiao Lulang only realized later on that this question was really difficult. Everyone's relaxed attitude when they first received the test paper had disappeared. Everyone buried their heads in writing, and no one handed in their papers early, perhaps because he was too engrossed in writing. Even when the emperor stood behind Xiao Lulang for a long time, Xiao Lulang did not notice. From the emperor's point of view, he could only see Xiao Liulang's skull. The emperor did not look for too long. He did not have the bad taste of adding pressure to the examinees in the examination room. He had just come in and happened to pass by Xiao Lulang, and saw Xiao Liulang's delicate and pretty handwriting. He hurriedly glanced at it. The handwriting was not bad. He then looked at the examinee's name, Xiao Lulang. Oh, was it the poor student who was ranked first with Royal Princeton? There was a walking stick beside him. Was he injured or disabled? Actually, the selection of officials in the current dynasty was based on one's appearance. It was mainly because Marquis Xianping's appearance had pulled up the emperor's appreciation of the civil and military officials. Those who were too ugly would be sent out after a few years. The emperor was a little disappointed when he saw the walking stick. He was worried that the examinee's appearance was not good. It was not that the emperor only looked at the face. The old chancellor was not good-looking, but he was still chosen by the emperor. It was because the old chancellor's ability was too valiant. The emperor quickly walked past Xiao Lulang and sat on the chair at the front. The invigilators all knew that the examinee was noticed by the emperor, but they did not know if the impression was good or bad. After the emperor sat on the invigilator's seat, he did not pay attention to Xiao Lulang. After all, he was too far away and could not see clearly. He asked someone to bring over the memorials. While invigilating, he silently read through the memorials until the end of the exam. The examinees stood up and bowed to the emperor. The emperor casually picked a few examinees and asked a few questions. Royal Prince and Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson were both called out. Xiao Lulang was not called out. At 5:45 p.m., everyone left the palace. Although it was only a day, everyone was more tired than the provincial examination and the imperial examination. Their hearts were tired. Other than a few examinees, most of the examinees had never seen the emperor in their lives. Being under the same roof as the emperor, they almost could not write. So nervous. Feng Lin's back was drenched in sweat. His number was closer to the front. He sat in the first row. That was really under the emperor's eyes. However, he did not dare to raise his head to look at the emperor. He was afraid that he would be accused of being disrespectful. I feel like I failed the exam. I don't even know what I am writing towards the end, he said dejectedly. Du Ruhan comforted him. Don't be discouraged. Everyone is like you. When His Majesty came, he forgot what he was thinking. The Emperor sympathized with them. He came after noon. At that time, everyone was almost done with their drafts. Otherwise, he would have been sitting there from the beginning. It was guaranteed that half of the examinees would not even be able to finish their drafts. When the Emperor stood behind Xiao Lulang, he was also startled. Their numbers were next to each other. Behind Xiao Lulang was in front of him. He could smell the ambergris on the Emperor's body. He was so nervous that his scalp went numb. However, thanks to being stimulated by Marquis Xianping early in the morning, his endurance seemed to be a bit stronger. How did Lulang do? Feng Lin asked Xiao Lulang. Xiao Lulang said, not bad. I wrote everything I wanted to. Feng Lin asked Du Ruhan and Lin Qingye. The two's performance was normal. However, the questions were too subjective. Whether or not they could pass the exam depended on the examiner's preferences. This was not something they could control. They could only do their best and leave it to fate. The group returned home. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the examiners started to mark the exam papers. The Minister of Rites and the Minister of Honglu were the examiners. The 4 Grand Secretaries were the examiners. This time, the exam papers were not divided into groups. Every paper would be marked by 6 examiners. The top 20 examinees would be sent to the Emperor. Doing well in the spring quarter examination did not mean that they would do well in the court examination. Being able to withstand the Emperor's pressure was a part of it. Being able to do well in one's field of expertise was also a part of it. However, examinees like Xiao Lulang, who had tied for first place with Prince An, had received the Emperor's attention. Furthermore, the Emperor had stayed by his side for a while during the court examination. Therefore, if his exam papers were not in the top 20, the Emperor would definitely ask about it. It was very likely that he would ask someone to bring his exam papers over to see how he fell out of the top 20. The court examination papers were not copied. After all, they had to be presented to the Emperor. The Emperor wanted to see the examinee's handwriting. However, before presenting it to the Emperor, the examiners would simply paste the name. In other words, the examiners would not see the examinee's name. However, if the examiners wanted to see it, it was not difficult. Moreover, after the small exam, the examiners had already memorized some of the examinee's handwriting. Xiao Liulong's exam papers quickly reached the hands of the minister of Honglu Temple. He immediately recognized Xiao Liulong's handwriting. Grand Tutor Zhuang had already given the order to not let Xiao Lulang surpass Prince An. If Xiao Liulong's essay was not outstanding and did not pose a threat to Prince An, the minister of Honglu Temple would be assured to place him in the top 20. However, it was clear that Xiao Liulong's essay was too outstanding. This was an essay that the examiners, regardless of taste, could not find fault with. It was definitely a huge threat to Prince An. During the meal, the minister of Honglu Temple quietly went to the toilet. Near the toilet, Grand Tutor Zhuang had been waiting for a long time. How is it? Grand Tutor Zhuang asked. I haven't changed it to Prince An's. The minister of Honglu Temple said. I only changed Xiao Liulong's. Grand Tutor Zhuang handed him a piece of draft paper. This was what Prince An had written from memory after returning to the Fu. It was almost the same as the court exam papers. After the minister of Honglu Temple finished reading, his expression became serious. The 2 papers are about the same. How could it be that they were about the same? Grand Tutor Zhuang frowned. He thought of something and asked, what's going on with Marquis Xianping? I think he seems to have taken a liking to this child. The minister of Honglu Temple said, Grand Tutor, I'm afraid you didn't look closely at Xiao Liulong's appearance. Grand Tutor Zhuang did not understand. What's wrong with him? He was too handsome, so Marquis Xianping took a liking to him? Although Marquis Xianping was dissolute, he was not into men. The minister of Honglu Temple said. He looks like the young marquis who has already passed away. When this official saw him for the first time, I was shocked. Perhaps because of this, Marquis Xianping favored him. Grand Tutor Zhuang sneered. His son is dead and he found someone who looks similar to him to replace him? The emperor wanted to suppress the Zhuang family, If there really was someone who was about the same as Princeton, the emperor would not have chosen Princeton to be first. Before today, the emperor would not have chosen Xiao Lulang to be first either. Xiao Liulang's background was too poor. If he was too famous, he would be hated by others. If the emperor really cared about Xiao Lulang, he would not have given him the top scorer. The emperor would have personally chosen someone else to be the top scorer. If the officials had any objections, the emperor would have used Xiao Liulang's exam papers and said that if someone like him did not get first place, how could Princeton get first place? As for the top scorer's exam papers, the emperor would not let anyone see them. This was the imperial court. This was the examination room. However, Marquis Xianping appeared. He was telling everyone that Xiao Lulang was someone he wanted to protect. Anyone who dared to touch Xiao Lulang would have to think twice. This matter would spread to the emperor's ears sooner or later. The emperor would know that Xiao Lulang had a backer and would not have any worries. A cold light flashed through Grand Tutor Zhuang's eyes. This brat is fawning on my grandson and also fawning on Marquis Xianping. What a way to play both sides. I despise people like him who are in one camp, but are in another. 5 days later, all the exam papers were marked. The top 20 were placed in a box by the Minister of Rites and sent to the emperor. The emperor was in the throne room and was not far away. However, the Minister of Rites was halfway there when he bumped into Marquis Xianping. The Minister of Rites was slightly surprised. Why was Marquis Xianping in the palace so early in the morning? Didn't this guy laze in bed recently? A faint smile appeared on Marquis Xianping's handsome face as he said politely, "Ministerly, where are you going?" The Minister of Rites said, "I'm going to deliver the exam papers to the emperor." "Oh, you're out." Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows and reached out to touch the box containing the exam papers. The Minister of Rites took a step back and his face darkened. "Marquis Xianping, what are you doing?" Marquis Xianping smiled faintly. "I'm going to see if you did anything to the exam papers." The Minister of Rites frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about? We are all examiners personally appointed by the emperor. How could we do such a thing? Aren't you afraid of being beheaded?" Marquis Xianping said, "I'm afraid there are people who aren't afraid." Marquis Xianping is talking about who isn't afraid? Grand Tutor Zhuang strolled over. Marquis Xianping turned around and looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang with a faint smile. "Oh, Grand Tutor Zhuang is here." The Minister of Rites bowed. "Grand Tutor Zhuang." Grand Tutor Zhuang nodded in return, and then looked at Marquis Xianping. Is Marquis Xianping dissatisfied with Minister Li? Or with the cabinet? Or dissatisfied with the emperor? Marquis Xianping smiled faintly. "Don't accuse me too much. I just want to see if these exam papers have been tampered with." In this world, only Marquis Xianping dared to question the cabinet. Grand Tutor Zhuang chuckled. "If Marquis Xianping doesn't believe me, you can take a look for yourself." Minister Li looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang in surprise. Grand Tutor Zhuang said, "I believe that Marquis Xianping wouldn't take the opportunity to tamper with the exam papers. Minister Li, please let Marquis Xianping take a look. If anything happens, I will take responsibility." Since he said this, Minister Li couldn't not let Marquis Xianping take a look. Marquis Xianping opened the box and flipped through each exam paper. There were names on the exam papers, but he could still recognize Xiao Liulang's handwriting. After all, he had seen it many times in private. He saw Xiao Liulang's exam paper. Grand Tutor Zhuang looked at the exam paper, and then looked at Marquis Xianping. He sneered. "Is there a problem?" Marquis Xianping looked deeply at Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang said calmly, "If there's nothing else, I will send these exam papers to His Majesty. His Majesty is still waiting to review them." Marquis Xianping put down the exam paper and hesitated for a moment. His doubtful gaze rested on Grand Tutor Zhuang for a moment. From beginning to end, Grand Tutor Zhuang was incomparably magnanimous. In the end, Marquis Xianping let Minister Li leave. He also stepped out of the palace. Gazing at his retreating figure, Grand Tutor Zhuang smiled coldly. He knew it would be like this. He had long been on guard against Marquis Xianping. Did Marquis Xianping really think that he was looking at Xiao Liulang's exam paper? The handwriting was exactly the same. Even the content was similar. It was just that a few key points had been changed. Marquis Xianping, this boorish fellow, couldn't see it. Don't underestimate these small details. They were enough to anger the emperor. So, what was the point of putting him in the top 20? Xiao Lulang probably wouldn't even be able to pass the second-tier Grand Scholar exam. Grand Tutor Zhuang proudly left the palace. His carriage was waiting at the palace gates. When the servants saw him, they hurriedly opened the curtains for him. He was in a good mood and smiled as he got into the carriage. But he never expected that there would be someone sitting in the carriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang trembled in fear. Marquis Xianping. What was his coachman doing? Why did he let Marquis Xianping get in? Someone come. He shouted sternly. Marquis Xianping calmly said, "Let's go." The carriage left. Grand Tutor Zhuang's face paled. He lifted the curtains and looked at the coachman sitting in front of him. Only then did he realize that the other party wasn't his coachman. Where was his coachman? Where did he go? His carriage had always been parked at the palace gates, and there were imperial guards there. How did Marquis Xianping swap out his coachman? Grand Tutor Zhuang angrily looked at the other party. Marquis Xianping, what do you want to do? Marquis Xianping sneered. Put Xiao Liulang's exam paper back. Otherwise, your horse will be frightened. This marquis can't guarantee that you'll be able to land safely. After all, you don't know martial arts, do you? Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. You, Marquis Xianping chuckled. You want to ask how this marquis found out? This marquis doesn't understand exam papers, but this marquis still understands you, Grand Tutor Zhuang. Grand Tutor Zhuang's face turned ashen. Marquis Xianping's arrogance often made people think that he was a boorish man. But look at what he did today. They left the palace almost one after the other. Marquis Xianping didn't have time to catch people after checking the exam papers. In other words, Marquis Xianping was certain that he would touch Xiao Liulang's exam papers before checking the exam papers, so he caught Royal Prince in early on. Grand Tutor Zhuang gritted his teeth. You have guts. Marquis Xianping replied, same to you. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. You think you can threaten this official like this? Marquis Xianping spread his hands. No, I'm just giving you a suggestion. Since you don't want it, this marquis has another set for you. Grand Tutor Zhuang's heart surged with an ominous premonition. The carriage quickly stopped on an empty official road. There were no pedestrians coming and going. Only one carriage stopped in front of the two. Grand Tutor Zhuang opened the curtains. Someone in the other carriage also opened the curtains, revealing Royal Prince who was tied up and gagged with a cloth. Royal Prince looked excitedly at Grand Tutor Zhuang. He kept mumbling but couldn't say a complete sentence. Grand Tutor Zhuang's jaw almost dropped from shock at Marquis Xianping's audacity. Do you know what you're doing? You're not holding the imperial palace hostage. You're kidnapping the royal prince of Zhao country. Marquis Xianping indifferently leaned back in his chair and looked at him calmly. So, there wasn't a trace of fear in his eyes. He was as arrogant as a wild horse that could trample on everything at any time. Grand Tutor Zhuang wasn't in the right either. It was a crime punishable by beheading. It was just a matter of who could last until the end. Grand Tutor Zhuang clenched his fists and glared at Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping said carelessly, I don't have much patience. I'll tell you one last time. Send the test papers back. Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't admit that he had touched the test papers. However, this didn't seem to affect Marquis Xianping's threat. Grand Tutor Zhuang felt that he was a scholar meeting a soldier. He couldn't explain himself. If it was a scholar, he could still beat around the bush to get the other party in. However, Marquis Xianping wouldn't. He wouldn't give you a chance to beat around the bush. Grand Tutor Zhuang felt a deep sense of powerlessness. However, he didn't admit defeat so quickly. Marquis Xianping, don't be too arrogant. Marquis Xianping looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang and lightly raised his finger. In the other carriage, Changjing pulled out a dagger and stabbed Royal Prince's thigh without hesitation. Fresh blood spurted out. Royal Prince gritted his teeth, but still let out a shrill cry. Grand Tutor Zhuang's expression changed. Marquis Xianping lazily leaned against the wall of the carriage and raised his eyebrows. Remember, this is arrogance. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his entire body trembled. He flew into a rage. Aren't you afraid that someone will die? If my grandson dies, do you think you won't have to pay with your life? Marquis Xianping laughed coldly. Do you think I'm afraid? Grand Tutor Zhuang was stunned. Digression. The two chapters combined into one. Note: the original examination paper came from Ming Dynasty examinee Zhao Bingzhong's palace examination paper. Part of the translation came from Sohu. Com. Calligraphy Lecture Hall. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964226/112925645. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikagu mobile reading website. Chapter 254. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. The emperor was marking the exam papers in the throne room. The Minister of Rites, the Minister of Honglu Temple, and a few cabinet scholars were all present. Although the exam papers had been marked by them, the emperor would still ask them if he had any questions. They were all very nervous, and the Minister of Honglu Temple was the most nervous. Of course, not all the exam papers presented to the emperor were clean. There were a few papers mixed in with the exam papers from the various parties. Of course, they weren't bad, but those who were too weak wouldn't be able to pass the court exam. They were afraid that the emperor wouldn't pick them out and reselect them from the exam papers after the 20th place. This situation was rare, but it wasn't unheard of. Every time the emperor finished reading an exam paper, if he placed it on the right, it meant that he passed and could keep it. If he placed it on the left, it meant that he had an objection. Those who had an objection wouldn't be able to pass the first grade, but they wouldn't fall into the third grade either. The emperor had finished reading 10 exam papers, and there were no failures yet. The weather was good today. The imperial study was quiet, and only a warm spring breeze blew in from outside the door. A corner of the exam paper was blown up. Eunuch Wei quickly took a yellow jade paperweight and pressed it down. The emperor didn't look up, but he enjoyed Eunuch Wei's attentiveness. No wonder he was an old man who had been by his side for so many years. The emperor coughed softly, and Eunuch Wei quickly handed him a cup of hot tea. Look, even the temperature of the tea was just right. Your Majesty, you've been marking all morning. Take a rest. Minister Li worriedly advised. Your health is more important. I'm fine. He was just a little heaty. This was the downside of being an emperor. Even the slightest disturbance would cause him to fall off his horse. Therefore, he didn't like to admit that he was unwell. The emperor took a sip of tea and continued to mark the exam papers. He had just finished marking Yuan Yu and Ning Ziyuan's exam papers. Their exam papers were currently in the top 3. The overall strength of the examinees in this round was much more outstanding than the previous rounds. Thus, it was much more difficult to choose. The minister of the Honglu Temple was one of the people who had tampered with the exam papers. He knew that the emperor would soon mark Xiao Liulong's exam papers. Xiao Liulong's score was not high and was at the bottom of the top 20. Of course, there was a reason for this. He had written some treasonous words, but the reason why he was still allowed to enter was because he was a Huiyuan. Huiyuan did not fall behind the curtains. This was an established rule. Even if they wanted to fall behind, it would not be up to them. It would have to be done by the emperor himself. Everything was flawless. The Chamberlain of Dependencies kept staring at the second set of papers. After the emperor finished correcting Song Ping's exam paper, he was not satisfied and placed it on the left side. Minister Li's heart sank. Song Ping was his disciple. It seemed that there was no hope. The emperor raised his hand to take one of the exam papers. This was the exam paper of an examinee named Zhu Guangmao. He came from a humble family and had no background. His performance in the spring examination could not be considered outstanding. In the provincial examination, his ranking was only in the top 10. For the time being, he did not attract the interest of any party. After correcting his exam, it would be Xiao Liulong's. The minister of the Honglu Temple's heart was in his throat. Although there shouldn't be any problems, he had done something wrong. He felt a little guilty. He wondered what he would do if the emperor recognized that it was not Xiao Liulong's handwriting. In reality, the imitation was very good. He was afraid that even if Xiao Liulang himself came, he would not be able to see that it was an imitation. Of course, the emperor would not be able to see it. Just as the minister of the Honglu Temple was feeling nervous, a eunuch suddenly came from outside the door. "Your Majesty, Grand Tutor Zhuang requests an audience." The minister of the Honglu Temple's gaze moved away from Xiao Liulong's exam paper and looked at the door. Why had Grand Tutor Zhuang come at this time? The emperor had just picked up the exam paper and put it back. He said to the door, "Summon him." "Yes," the eunuch replied. "Your Majesty summons Grand Tutor Zhuang for an audience." Eunuch Wei furrowed his brows. This was a newly appointed eunuch. He had promoted him, and he did things too strictly. In front of the emperor there were not so many rules. Summon what? Just directly let him in. Grand Tutor Zhuang was also stunned. He had originally planned on walking in openly and cupping his hands in greeting. However, this new eunuch had made the scene so formal that he had to kneel and greet the emperor after entering the imperial study. The emperor waved his hand lightly, indicating for Grand Tutor Zhuang to rise. "Grand Tutor, what is the matter?" The officials also saluted Grand Tutor Zhuang. After Grand Tutor Zhuang saluted, he looked at the emperor and said, "I have something to report." Now, the emperor looked at him. "Yes." Grand Tutor Zhuang saluted. Minister Li tactfully said, "Then I will take my leave first." The emperor agreed. Minister Li and the others left the imperial study. They did not go far, and they drank tea in a nearby side hall. The emperor's gaze once again fell on Grand Tutor Zhuang's face. "What is it that is so urgent? Can't you wait for me to finish marking the exam papers?" Grand Tutor Zhuang discreetly glanced at the exam papers on the table. When he saw that Xiao Liulong's paper was the second one that was about to be marked, he secretly let out a sigh of relief. He stepped forward and said, "When I was on my way back, I suddenly remembered that the Empress Dowager's birthday is in a few days. I dare to visit the Empress Dowager in the Summer Palace." The emperor's expression froze. He put down the imperial brush, lowered his eyes, and took a sip of tea. Then he looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang and said, "Mother's phoenix body is not well. The imperial physician said that she should not be exposed to the wind or receive guests. In a moment, I will send someone to the summer palace to see if mother has improved, and then inform Grand Tutor Zhuang." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Grand Tutor Zhuang saluted deeply. The moment he stood up, he seemed to accidentally bump into the exam papers on the table. A stack of exam papers knocked into the emperor's teacup. The teacup fell over, and the exam papers also fell to the ground. "I deserve to die." He hurriedly knelt down and begged for forgiveness. He also hurriedly picked up the exam papers. Eunuch Wei hurriedly went to check if the emperor had been scalded by the tea. The emperor also lowered his head and brushed off the water droplets on his body. While the two boys were not paying attention, Imperial Tutor Zhuang hid Xiao Liulong's examination paper in his left sleeve, while from his right sleeve he took out Xiao Liulong's original paper and clipped it between the examination papers. After leaving the imperial palace, Grand Tutor Zhuang saw Marquis Xianping with his hands wrapped in a hand warmer. It was already the 4th month. He didn't know why this person was still using these things. Marquis Xianping's eyes were cold and his temperament was deep. However, the moment Grand Tutor Zhuang walked over, his eyebrows rose very wantonly. "Oh, Grand Tutor Zhuang walks quite quickly. Your treasured sword is still young." Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his breath was stuck in his throat. He couldn't go up or down. "I've already put the exam papers back. Why aren't you quickly releasing the royal prince?" "I'll release him." Marquis Xianping turned his head and asked for a beating. Changjing. Changjing directly threw Royal Prince and out of the carriage. Grand Tutor Zhuang was speechless. The Zhuang family's coachman was also released. He hurriedly carried Royal Prince and back to his own carriage. Royal Prince and was injured, and one of his legs was bleeding. Grand Tutor Zhuang clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Marquis Xianping said, "Hurry up and treat his injury. Do you want him to become a cripple? TSK. Tell me, how are you a grandfather? You don't care about your own grandson at all." Grand Tutor Zhuang almost exploded on the spot. "Don't you know how my grandson got injured in your heart? How do you have the face to say such things? It's so infuriating. This guy really infuriates me to death. Do you think he'll definitely get first place like this?" Grand Tutor Zhuang had seen Xiao Liulong's exam papers. To be honest, he didn't do much. Unfortunately, Royal Prince had already discussed this policy question with the Chen Kingdom's monarch when they were in the Chen Kingdom. At that time, Royal Prince didn't know that the imperial examination would have a similar question. He was only listening to the Chen Kingdom's monarch talk about how to stabilize the country. Xiao Lulang was indeed a person with real talent. His literary talent was brilliant, his words were meaningful, and he quoted from classics. It was very convincing. However, he wasn't a real politician. He wasn't as experienced as the monarch when it came to governing a country. Thus, what the Honglu Temple official said was true. The two exam papers were indeed neck and neck. Moreover, Jiangnan scholar Ning Ziyuan and Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson Yuan Yu also had excellent exam papers. Even if His Majesty didn't praise the Zhuang family, wouldn't he praise Grand Secretary Yuan as well? Grand Secretary Yuan was an official who had served 3 emperors. Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. "Don't be happy too early. The top scorer might not necessarily be that kid's." Marquis Xianping's face was calm. "I'm not listening. Bastard, keep chanting." Grand Tutor Zhuang was speechless. "You're the bastard. What kind of person was this?" Grand Tutor Zhuang couldn't stay any longer. If he stayed any longer, his life would be shortened. Grand Tutor Zhuang left in a huff. Marquis Xianping tilted his head and curled his lips. "Take care. I won't see you out." At this time, in the imperial study, the emperor was indeed hesitant about how to rank the top 3. Grand Tutor Zhuang had been loyal to the emperor for many years, so he had a certain understanding of the emperor. In terms of the depth of the essays, Royal Prince Anne's paper was the most thought-provoking. In terms of literary talent and the structure of the examinees, the emperor liked Xiao Liulong's paper more. However, Ning Ziyuan and Yuan Yu's papers weren't bad either. Of the 4, the youngest was Xiao Lulang. He was 18 years old. Royal Prince An was 19 years old. Yuan Yu was 25. Ning Ziyuan was the oldest at 30. As for their family backgrounds, Ning Ziyuan and Xiao Lulang came from humble families, while Royal Prince An and Yuan Yu came from noble families. Oh right. Xiao Lulang was that little cripple, wasn't he? Thinking of the crutch he saw, the emperor frowned. All the examinees and their families in the capital began the long and anxious days of waiting for the results. Although everyone was basically a jinsher, and the worst was a jinsher, no one was willing to be a jinsher. The incense in Puji Temple flourished again. It was said that all the examinees came to pay their respects. In Qishui Alley, the family seemed to be calm, but in fact they couldn't sit still. Old Madam didn't secretly eat candied plums or play cards. She ordered the old chancellor to buy skewers on the street every day. In fact, she was just asking for news. Madame Yao didn't make snacks these days. At dawn, she went to the neighbors' houses to visit. In fact, she was also waiting for news. Little Jing Kong studied very hard these days. He was always worried that his bad brother-in-law couldn't pass the exam. If that happened, his family would have to rely on him. When he grew up, he would take the exam for Jiao Jiao and bring him back. The day of release was April 27th. Because the Jinsha ranking was written on yellow paper, it was also called the Jin ranking. The tributary scholars couldn't wait at home for the announcement. They had to go to the palace to accept the conferment. After they were conferred, the results would be released in all the government offices and tributary courtyards in the capital. At 5 o'clock, Gu Jiao and Xiao Lulang woke up. The two had a simple breakfast. Gu Jiao sent Xiao Lulang to Lu Quan's carriage. It's still early to release the results. Don't wait. Xiao Lulang said to Gu Jiao. And okay. Gu Jiao nodded. Xiao Lulang put down the curtain. He thought of something and opened the curtain again. Gu Jiao looked at him. What's wrong? Xiao Lulang wanted to say something but hesitated. Nothing. It's still early. You go and sleep for a while. Gu Jiao smiled, okay. Xiao Lulang looked at her and didn't say anything. He put down the curtain and took the carriage to the palace. The tributary scholars had almost arrived. Feng Lin, Lin Qingye, and Du Ruhan were also there. It was unknown if Feng Lin was too nervous during the court examination. When he returned, he fell ill. Fortunately, Lin Qingye and Steward Zhou took care of him. That was why he was able to pull through. It was said that there were people who fell ill and died. Therefore, the road to the imperial examination wasn't easy. Feng Lin had just recovered and his face was still pale. They exchanged a few words. There was a sudden commotion at the back of the crowd. Then they saw Royal Princeton walk over with the help of several servants. Du Ruhan's eyes widened strangely. Why is his leg crippled? Xiao Lulang was also surprised. He looked at the other person. Coincidentally, Royal Princeton was also looking at him. Their eyes met. Xiao Lulang could clearly feel a trace of coldness in Royal Prince Anne's eyes. Xiao Lulang didn't understand and didn't take it to heart. He was just an insignificant person. What did it matter if he liked or disliked him? The group of people still entered the Hall of Supreme Harmony in the order of the quotation marks. The tables and cushions of the palace examination had already been removed. The palace hall was bright and spacious, simple and unadorned. Because of the presence of the emperor, Grand Tutor Zhuang, Grand Secretary Yuan and other cabinet ministers, it appeared especially solemn and respectful. The group of people kowtowed to the emperor under the lead of the ceremonial officials. Then, Eunuch Wei presented the name list to the emperor. The examinees were about 3 meters away from the emperor. In reality, it was still a bit far. Some people wanted to see the emperor's face, but before they could raise their heads, they were suppressed by the emperor's aura. The emperor didn't like to do things that were deliberately mysterious. He directly began to announce the top 3. Examinee Ning Ziyuan from Jade City of Guangzhou. 3rd place in the 4th month of the Zhenggu year. He is bestowed the title of Grand Scholar. Ning Ziyuan was stunned. The examinees were shocked. Was there a 3rd place candidate? Cough. The eunuch at the side gave a look to the stunned Ning Ziyuan. Ning Ziyuan quickly came back to his senses and stepped out of the line. He walked to the emperor and stopped at the designated place. He lifted his clothes and kowtowed 3 times and 9 times. He said with a choked voice, I, Ning Ziyuan, thank the emperor for his kindness. Long live the emperor. The emperor asked him to rise and continued to read. In the 4th month of the Zhenggu year, the 2nd place of the first scholar, Zhuang Yuheng, is bestowed the title of scholar. Everyone looked at Royal Prince and Princeton was 2nd place? This was a bit unexpected. A trace of disappointment flashed through Prince Anne's heart. He dragged his injured leg and came to the emperor under the envious and surprised gazes of the crowd. He also kowtowed 3 times and 9 times. I, Zhuang Yuheng, thank the emperor for his kindness. Long live the emperor. Long live the emperor. The emperor glanced at Princeton and didn't say anything. Next was the top scorer. The emperor's gaze stopped for a moment on Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson, Yuan Yu. He opened the name list and said loudly, in the 4th month of the Zhenggu year, the 1st place of the first scholar, Xiao Lulang. Digression, Grand Secretary Yuan. Are you happy to be mischievous? Emperor. Oh asterisk. Oh also, are you serious about wanting to be Liulong's stepmother in the comments section? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896422826 /112899920. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 255. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. This year's court examination was a complete surprise. First, Princeton didn't become the top scorer. Then, Grand Secretary Yuan's grandson didn't make it into the top 3. Xiao Lulang and Ning Ziyuan, these two dark horses who had come from the humble class, directly stunned all the candidates present. Originally, the 3 most popular candidates were Princeton, Yuan Yu, and Wang Yuan, the scholar from Jiangnan. Everyone guessed that the 3 of them would make it into the top 1. Princeton would be the top scorer, Yuan Yu would be the second, and Wang Yuan would be the third. But they were all wrong. In fact, Xiao Lulang and Ning Ziyuan's results had been very stable, especially Xiao Lulang. He didn't get first place in the college examination, but he was the top scorer in all the other examinations. It was only natural that he would become the top scorer. However, he met Princeton, who was even more popular. Princeton overcame all the difficulties and didn't get second place. Who would believe that he would lose to Xiao Lulang? The Zhuang family had so many highly educated people, but their children couldn't beat a poor boy from the countryside. Forget it, it wasn't their turn anyway. They just needed to watch. The top 3 and the top 1 were the top scorer, the second and the third. They would be given the title of Jinshi. This was the highest honor in the court examination. There were 72 people in the top 2, and they would be given the title of Jinshi. The remaining 135 people were all Jinshi, and they would be given the title of Jinshi. Du Ruhan was 13th, 2 places higher than in the metropolitan examination. He was quite satisfied. Feng Lin was 176th in the metropolitan examination. He didn't have much confidence at that time, and he was too nervous in the court examination. He didn't perform well, and expected that he wouldn't be able to make it into the top 2. As expected, he was ranked 200th. Even though he expected it, he couldn't help but be disappointed when he saw it. As for Lin Qingye, he was ranked 123rd in the metropolitan examination. This time he was ranked 99th in the top 100. Lin Qingye was also very satisfied with his results. He wasn't a gifted examinee, and was only able to get to where he was today because of his hard work and Xiao Liulang's guidance. His father's initial expectations for him was only to pass the high scholar examination. Now that he was able to pass all the way to the capital, even if he was also a grand scholar, his father would be overjoyed. He was also very happy. Finally, he didn't have to go back to inherit his family's wealth. The top 3 of each family were announced by the emperor himself, and the rest were announced by a special messenger. After the announcement, the messenger led the 3 first-class Jinshi to the steps in front of the emperor's throne to receive the ranking of Jinshi. Most importantly, it was the top scholar who received it. The other 2 followed behind him and bowed. The positions of the 3 were also particular. The champion was in the middle, slightly ahead of the other 2. He stood on the giant turtle head engraved in the center of the first Tao control stone, also known as the Soul Champion. The emperor stared at Xiao Liulang's face, which was almost within reach, for a long time. Xiao Lulang lowered his eyes and calmly allowed the emperor to examine him. "Your Majesty?" Eunuch Wei reminded him in a small voice. The emperor made a sound of acknowledgement, and retracted his gaze. He handed the ranking to the messenger, and the messenger handed it to Xiao Lulang. After receiving the ranking of Jinshi, Xiao Lulang led the Jinshi to once again thank the emperor for his kindness. After the release of the results of the court examination, there was an important event, which was the parade of Jinshi through the streets. All the Jinshi changed into the Jinshi robes issued by the court. Under the leadership of the new champion, they walked through the streets of the imperial city to receive the congratulations of the people. Among them, the champion's robes were red brocade, also known as Fei Luo brocade. It was the only pure red. The second place and third place wore black brocade robes, while the rest of the jinshi wore dark blue official robes. The emperor gave Xiao Lulang and the other 2 flower hairpins. The 3 of them wore the flower hairpins on their official hats. To be honest, Xiao Lulang and Prince An were extremely beautiful. Wearing the flower hairpins didn't make them look feminine. Instead, they looked valiant and valiant, as beautiful as peaches and plums. On the other hand, Ning Ziyuan, who came in third place, was barely satisfactory. He was dark and skinny, and his looks were ordinary. The flower hairpin on his head made his dark skin look unbearable to look at. It directly interrupted the fine tradition of the third-place winners being handsome men. The imperial guards led the way, and the officials from the Ministry of Rites followed closely behind. Xiao Lulang rode on his horse, leading more than 200 jinshi on the back of a beautiful horse. They were majestic, receiving the cheers and gazes of all the people. He had returned to the capital, and in this way he was not allowed to hide or retreat. He was completely standing under the sun, standing in front of everyone. The Imperial City Guards army had long filled the entire Imperial City Imperial Street. Even so, they could not stop the passion of the people. Many people rushed in, but the Imperial City Guards army blocked them with their bodies. They could stop people, but they couldn't stop the things in their hands. The people originally came for Prince An, but who would have thought that the new champion was so beautiful? Was he really human? Was he not a fairy that descended to the mortal world? Was he the world's literary star? Champion! Look at me, look at me! Champion! Look over here! A bold girl actually shouted at the top of her lungs. There were also people who shouted for Prince An, but it didn't sound like it was the case. The titles Zhuang Yuan and third place were easy to shout, but the second place Ning Ziyuan. Why was it so strange? One girl didn't know if she was too nervous or she couldn't speak clearly, but she suddenly shouted, "Ungrateful wretch." And Prince An's face turned black. Feng Lin Qi wasn't happy at first, but in the midst of the cheers and congratulations, he suddenly felt his blood boil. This was what it meant to bring glory to the face. This was it. So what if they were both jinshi? All the people in the capital came to celebrate for them, so any hardship was worth it. Suddenly, a sachet was thrown into Feng Lin's arms. Feng Lin was shocked at first, but then he picked up the sachet and looked in the direction it came from. Up there, a girl wearing a veil waved at him. Feng Lin's face turned red. This was the first time a girl gave him something. It was good to study, and it was good to become a jinshi. There was only one champion, and only one Prince An. Everyone couldn't snatch him, so they went to snatch other jinshi. Feng Lin was hit by the sachet a few times, and his face was as red as a monkey's butt, making the girls laugh. There were many sachets on Prince An's body. He didn't deliberately catch them, but he couldn't throw them away. Give them to me if you don't want them. Ning Ziyuan, who was riding beside him, took the sachets from his saddle. They're all high-quality thread, so they can be sold for a lot of money. Prince An, Xiao Lulang received the most sachets, but he didn't take any of them and threw them away without hesitation. Moreover, he had a cold face the whole time, which really broke the hearts of the girls. Why was it so hard to hook up with the champion these days? The young ladies didn't really want to get married, but this was the tradition of the parade. It would be best if they could get a jinshi, but if they couldn't, it would be good to have some fun. Xiao Lulang was a bit absent-minded. So many women came to see him. Why didn't she come? Before he left, he told her not to wait for the results to be released, so she really didn't come to see? At that time, he wanted to say something, but he stopped. In fact, he wanted to tell her that the new champion would lead the jinshi on a parade, but he was too shy to say a word. That was true. She wasn't a girl from the capital, so she didn't know about the parade. That was why she didn't come. What if she came? Did he want to take a look? No. He thought no in his heart, but his hands tightened on the reins. His head slowly looked to the sides of the street. He first looked at the crowd on the street, then looked at the room above the shop. The champion is looking at me. He's looking at me. Nonsense. He's clearly looking at me. It's me. Champion. With just a small glance, it caused a terrifying commotion. The Imperial Guards nearly failed to stop them, and dozens of scented sachets suddenly flew over. Xiao Liulong's body trembled, and he no longer dared to look at the crowd. She really didn't come. What a joke! What was he disappointed about? Pa! Another sachet landed on his saddle. He didn't look at it and planned to throw this sachet away, but when he picked it up, he felt that something was wrong. He paused and looked at the sachet in his hand. The stitches were very fine, but the thread was on the outside. His heart shook and he looked up in disbelief at a tea house on the right. He suddenly tightened the reins and stopped the horse. No Grand Scholar could walk in front of the new champion. When he stopped, all the Grand Scholars behind him had to stop as well. The Imperial Guards that were responsible for escorting them also had to stop. The entire group and the entire street stopped for one person. Xiao Liulang held the sachet in his hand and looked at the young girl in the tea house. The young girl was wearing a blue dress and had a slender figure. Her eyebrows were picturesque and the red birthmark on the left side of her face was like the clouds in the sky. It was also like a begonia flower falling in the wind. It was beautiful to the heart. Gu Jiao leaned against the window and looked at him with her chin in her hand. Her lips were slightly curved. Xiao Liulong's mood suddenly became better. The coldness in his eyes disappeared and he also smiled. His serious face was already charming to death. When he revealed a smile, it was like ice and snowflowers blooming, all things coming back to life, and the morning light coming. This moment of amazement was hard to describe. Then everyone saw Xiao Liulang hang the only sachet he received today on his waist. The girls were jealous to death. Didn't the new champion not accept sachets? Why did you make an exception? Why didn't you reject it? Also, why are you smiling? You're not allowed to smile. Just when the girls thought that this was enough to make them despair, something even more despairing happened. The new champion actually took off the royal flower hairpin. Everyone was stunned. It can't be? The champion wasn't going to give her the flower hairpin? No. They wouldn't allow it. Digression. At such a festive moment, can I ask for a monthly ticket? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/112897185. HTML Genius memorized the website address www.zhhbqg.com. Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 256. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In Zhao country, there was a tradition of the top scholar receiving a flower hairpin. At first, it was just the top scholar receiving a flower hairpin, but it slowly evolved into the 3-tripod hairpin. These hairpins were bestowed by the emperor and had a very special meaning. Every daughter of Zhao country was proud to receive a 3-tripod hairpin. That's right, the 3-tripod hairpin was not given to men. But generally, it was not given to women casually. First, it was bestowed by the emperor, and everyone cherished it. Second, they were afraid of offending someone by favoring one and discriminating against another. Such a thing happened in the previous dynasty. A top scholar gave his flower hairpin to a famous brothel prostitute. As a result, he angered the daughter of an aristocratic family who secretly had feelings for him. That daughter's father was a powerful official in the court. The result was obvious. The top scholar's career was not smooth for many years. The second and third place of the imperial examination all entered the cabinet. Only he was sent to a small county to be the county magistrate. Of course, this was an exception. But no matter what, the flower hairpin was very rare. There were 2 ways to get a flower hairpin. One was to give it to the top scholar willingly. The other was to challenge the top scholar to a competition. If you won, you could win the other person's flower hairpin. In the past, the crown princess used this method to win 2 flower hairpins from the top scholar and the second place of the imperial examination. It was a popular story in Zhao country. If no one challenged Xiao Lulang, then Xiao Lulang could give the flower hairpin to anyone he wanted. But if someone challenged him, he had to accept the challenge and win. Only then could he give the flower hairpin to the person he wanted to give it to. If he didn't want to accept the challenge, it was fine. But he couldn't give the flower hairpin away. This was the rule. He took out the flower hairpin. It seemed that he was going to give it away. This was something that made people jealous. In the tea house next to Gu Jiao's, it was also on the 2nd floor. The window was open, and a girl in purple with a veil on her face was leaning against the window. Judging from her attire, she was either rich or noble. Her temperament was also not bad. There was also a maid beside her. She should be the daughter of an aristocratic family. She didn't even look at Gu Jiao next door. She just raised her chin and raised her eyebrows. Her gaze fell on the handsome new top scholar and said, "My daughter has a couplet that she would like to consult with the top scholar. I wonder if the top scholar would do me the honor?" This meant that he wanted to challenge the top scorer. Every year, when the Zhuangyuan paraded through the streets, there would be daughters challenging the top 3. However, not many people actually accepted the challenge, and even fewer lost after accepting it. Up until now, only the crown princess had successfully won 2 flower hairpins. This girl is really bold. Who is she? Everyone couldn't help but look at the purple-clothed girl. The purple-clothed girl didn't seem to mind being stared at. She smiled and arrogantly and innocently said, "What? Is the new top scholar afraid that he won't be able to match a girl's couplet? It's fine if you don't get it right, but you won't be able to give it away." Everyone finally understood. This lady couldn't have it herself, and she didn't want anyone else to have it. Alright, even though it sounded a little hateful, they were a little happy. That's right, the top scholar. You can only keep your hairpin for yourself. You're not allowed to give it to other women. Xiao Lulang nodded slightly at Gu Jiao, and then looked at the young girl from afar. His eyes regained their coldness. "Miss, please enlighten me." The purple-clothed girl said proudly, "River-gazing tower, river-gazing tower, river-gazing tower, river-gazing tower, river-gazing tower for eternity, river-gazing tower for eternity, river-gazing tower for eternity." Everyone was astonished. This young lady had such literary talent. Xiao Lulang didn't even think about it as he said indifferently, "Moon imprinted well, moon imprinted shadow, moon imprinted well, moon imprinted shadow and moon imprinted well, moon imprinted well for 10,000 years, moon imprinted shadow for 10,000 years." Everyone clapped and cheered. Great! She was indeed worthy of being the new top scorer. This pair was amazing. The purple-clothed girl choked. She didn't expect the other party to match her so quickly. She wasn't convinced and threw out another couplet. "Fog locks up the mountain, fog locks up the mountain." Xiao Lulang, the sky connects the water, the tail water connects the sky. The purple-clothed girl. The moon shines on the screen window, all the pavilions are bright. Zhuge courtesy name Kongming. Xiao Lulang, snow flies on the plum mountain. Everywhere is fragrant mountain by Letian. By Juyi, courtesy name Letian, nickname Fragrant Mountain. The purple-clothed girl anxiously scratched her head. She wanted to continue, but Xiao Lulang said indifferently, "Miss, you've used up all your questions." She was the first person to challenge, so she could ask 3 questions. The challengers after her could only ask 1 question each. This was also the rule. She was furious. She turned around and said to the other young Taoist nun in the room, "Elder sister, you do it." The young Taoist nun took a sip of tea and said leisurely, "Don't make a fool of yourself. Come back." If the new top scholar can be stumped by a few couplets, then he doesn't deserve to be the top scholar. But the purple-clothed girl stomped her feet and sat back down on her chair with a cold snort. The purple-clothed girl took the lead. After that, a few bold daughters challenged the new top scholar, but without exception, they were all defeated. Then came a ruthless test. She didn't test him on couplets or poems. Instead, she made Xiao Lulang recite a passage from Left Turn Backwards. She used a book to test Xiao Lulang. Left Turn had more than 90,000 words. How proficient did he have to be able to recite it from where she pointed, and backwards? This was too cruel. The crowd was originally gloating, but now they sympathized with the new top scholar. The official from the Ministry of Rights broke out in cold sweat. He knew that there should be rules in the competition. For example, only couplets or poems could be recited. There shouldn't be such a deviant question. Wasn't this just embarrassing? Only those who had studied would understand how difficult this question was. However, the common people didn't understand. The common people would only think, "Aren't you the new top scholar? How come you can't even recite a book?" The daughter stood on the second floor and said with a smile, "You can't answer it, right? Top scholar, your flower hairpin is mine." Xiao Lulang calmly said, "White feather, analyzed by Su Xingzi, the king's envoy Chu Dong." The daughter was stunned. She stared at the book in her hand. He actually didn't make a single mistake. "Thank you for letting me win." Xiao Lulang politely and distantly looked away. "Is there anything else?" he asked. The scene was silent. Everyone was shocked by his recitation of Left Turn. For a moment, no one dared to come forward and embarrass themselves. Xiao Liulang's eyes fell on Gu Jiao's face. His eyes had a temperature that made people jealous. "Miss, please give me your question." It was her turn? Gu Jiao was stunned. Everyone was reciting poems, but she didn't know how to recite poems. Actually, she did. It was just that she was so focused on looking at the handsome man that her mind was blank. Gu Jiao blinked her eyes and rolled her eyes. White sun against the mountain. Everyone staggered. "No, miss, what kind of question did you set? Even a 3-year-old child could do it." The new top scorer was a godly person who could recite Left Turn backwards. Xiao Lulang made an "oh" sound and looked at her steadily. He said in all seriousness, "This humble one doesn't know how to. This humble one loses." Everyone. "Are you kidding me, the new top scorer? You can't even." The crowd didn't know what to say. At this moment, another young lady stepped forward and said something that most of the people present couldn't understand. Xiao Lulang looked at her coldly and said something that most people couldn't understand. The purple-clothed girl was confused. "Sister? What were they talking about?" The young Taoist nun raised her eyebrows and said, "That young lady just now said to the new top scorer in the language of the state of Qin, 'White sun against the mountain.'" Ah. The purple-clothed girl was shocked. The young Taoist nun said slowly, "Then the new top scorer used the languages of the state of Qin, the state of Liang, the state of Zhao, the state of Jin, and the state of Yan. Oh right, the next sentence, the yellow river flows into the sea." Did that girl really think that the new top scorer couldn't match this sentence? Did she think that she could pick up the scraps? Did she think that she was better than the girl in green? Did she think that the new top scorer would look at her differently? In the end, she was slapped in the face. What others asked, he would answer. What you asked, he wouldn't answer. Winning against everyone in the world, only to lose to you. Most people didn't know what had happened. They just looked at the girl who was speaking in the language of birds, and her face suddenly turned the color of pig liver. The Taoist nun's words were spread by the maidservants. Then everyone knew what was going on. In order to watch the lawsuit parade, they didn't even eat breakfast. Now they were all full and their teeth were about to fall out. In the end, Gu Jiao received the new top scorer's hairpin. She looked at the hairpin in her hand and couldn't bear to put it down. It was so beautiful. Xiao Lulang looked at her from afar. There was a gentleness in his eyes that he didn't even notice. Suddenly, a little head popped out from under Gu Jiao's arm. Flower? Jiao Jiao, I want to wear it. Little Jing Kong said as he patted his little bald head with his two little hands. The daughters of wealthy families all reached out their hands. Little brother, you don't have hair. You should give it to your sisters. Their hair is so thick. Little Jing Kong snorted and turned his face away. No, he wanted to wear it himself. Gu Jiao made a headband for little Jing Kong with a veil, and put the flower into the headband. Little Jing Kong wore a big red flower, and shook his little bald head happily. Then the new top scorer's face darkened. Gu Jiao's goal was to get 3 hairpins. She already had the top scorer's hairpin. Next was the top scorer's hairpin and the top scorer's hairpin. Facing Royal Princeton, she was very calm. She didn't feel like she was in a mess at all. She directly threw an arithmetic question. Royal Princeton was speechless. Royal Princeton had planned to lose to her on purpose like Xiao Lulang did from the beginning. However, he didn't expect her to give him such a difficult question. Who taught her? Xiao Lulang? Why was she so merciful to Xiao Lulang and so serious when it came to him? Royal Princeton took a deep breath and said, I admit defeat. Xiao Lulang narrowed his eyes and watched Royal Princeton throw the hairpin to Gu Jiao. His eyes were frighteningly cold. But soon, Gu Jiao set her eyes on Ning Ziyuan, who came in third. Because of Ning Ziyuan's appearance, no one had challenged him yet. Therefore, he could choose to give the hairpin to Gu Jiao. However, Ning Ziyuan didn't want to give it to her. He had made up his mind. If anyone challenged him, he would reject them all and keep the hairpin for himself. Seeing that Gu Jiao wanted Ning Ziyuan's hairpin, Xiao Lulang wasn't angry anymore. Ning Ziyuan clutched his hairpin tightly. He wasn't going to give it to her. He wanted to keep it as a family heirloom and pass it down to his descendants. Give the hairpin to her. The new top scorer threatened. No, Ning Ziyuan refused. There will be serious consequences if you don't give it to her. The new top scorer continued to threaten. I'm the top scorer. I'll make things difficult for you. Ning Ziyuan was speechless. The top scorer was qualified to enter the Hanlin Academy directly. The top scorer's position was higher than the top scorer's position. Therefore, the top scorer could make things difficult for the top scorer. In ancient times, Go Jian, the king of Yu, endured hardships. Today, Ning Ziyuan gave the hairpin to her with tears in his eyes. Ning Ziyuan swallowed his humiliation and gave the hairpin away. Oh, the family heirloom was gone. Gu Jiao received 3 hairpins and became the first woman to collect 3 hairpins since the founding of the Zhao kingdom. She was in the limelight for a while, and even the crown princess paled in comparison. Xiao Lulang was the new top scorer. He was the most popular man today, and Gu Jiao was undoubtedly the most popular woman today. Needless to say, there was a lot of heated discussion among the people. The parade lasted for nearly 2 hours. Then, the new top scorer led them through Chang, an avenue, and arrived at the imperial palace. He was enthroned and had lunch before going home. Lulang, I feel like this is unreal. In the main hall of the imperial palace, Feng Lin said to Xiao Lulang excitedly, I've seen so many people looking at me along the way. I've never been so popular in my life. His glory was not worth mentioning compared to the new top scorer, but he had never thought of comparing himself with Xiao Lulang. The disappointment of being the same Jinsher had long disappeared in the process of riding a horse and parading through the streets. He was full of enthusiasm and only wanted to do his best to serve the imperial court. Digression note: the couplets in this article are from the internet. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. https://www.com/89642_8964226/1128711261. HTML Genius memorized the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 257. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. In fact, Xiao Lulang also had a feeling that it was as if a lifetime had passed, and that it was not real. He had been to the palace so many times, but this was the first time he came out from the main gate of the Meridian Gate. This gate was only opened for the master of the palace. However, Shi Yi, who was the top scholar, the second scholar, and the third scholar, was qualified to use it once. He thought he didn't care. The moment he came out, he felt different. However, he wasn't as excited as Feng Lin. He was calmer. He said to Feng Lin, "There will be many opportunities to serve the court." Feng Lin whispered, "But I don't want to go back to the county to get an official position. I want to stay in the Hanlin Academy. I envy you for being able to enter the Hanlin Academy." The top scholar wasn't the highest rank of scholar. The Hanlin Academy was. There's a saying, if you're not a Jinsher, you can't enter Hanlin, and if you're not a Hanlin, you can't enter the cabinet. Since ancient times, Hanlin Academy has been known as the place of the heir apparent. Be it Grand Tutor Zhuang, Grand Secretary Yuan, or even the old Chancellor, they were all from Hanlin Academy. Entering the Hanlin Academy didn't guarantee success. However, if you didn't enter, you wouldn't have much hope as a civil official. Xiao Lulang said, "The top 2 scholars and top 3 scholars will take the imperial exam next month. As long as you pass the exam, you can stay in the capital. After 3 years, the school will be closed. Those with good results can also enter the Hanlin Academy." Feng Lin could only look forward to it. After Gu Jiao saw her husband leave, she didn't go to Lu Yixing immediately, because she didn't know where Lu Yixing lived. She could only wait for Lu Yixing to come to her. However, she didn't go back to the clinic. She went to the Qingfeng gang. The Qingfeng gang lost a lot of money this time. Many people bet on Prince An and Yuan Yu, but not many bet on Xiao Lulang. Gu Jiao's 5,000 taels suddenly became 25,000 taels. This was because there were more than 10 people who took risks. Otherwise, the odds would be higher. Furthermore, those who had bet on Zhuang Yueshi and Gu Jinyu winning the flower hairpin had lost everything. The one with the highest odds was Gu Jiao. On the lonely hairpin list, only 2 people had bet on her. One was Zhuang Mengdai and the other was Prince An. Royal Prince An earned a fortune, but he wasn't happy at all. Zhuang Mengdai was also not happy. If she had known that this girl would win the flower hairpin, she would not have bet a single copper coin. She would have bet all her assets. Gu Jiao was very happy. The Cool Breeze gang gave her cash. She put the shiny silver in a sack and went back happily. Jadewater Alley had also received the good news of Xiao Lulang becoming the top scholar. The number of people who came to congratulate him was almost enough to break the doorstep. Brother Hua, how did you 2 raise your child? Why was Lulang so powerful? It's harder for my son to study than to take his life. Uncle Zhao thought of his youngest son, who only knew how to fool around all day. He really had given birth to this son for nothing. Don't say that. Brother Yang is very good. The old chancellor comforted Uncle Zhao. He even forgot to apologize to the former emperor in his heart. He and the Empress Dowager were not husband and wife. They had a pure monarch and vassal relationship. The old madam was very happy today. She deliberately went easy on the game, so that the neighbors would lose less money. Madame Yao was also very happy. She personally cooked the desserts. After she became pregnant, she rarely cooked. Today, she was so excited that Nanny Fong couldn't stop her. Nanny Fong had to help her. Madame Yao made walnut cakes. The children didn't like to eat them, but she found that Xiao Lulang liked them very much. She kneaded the dough and said, "At first, I saw that he was good to Jiao Jiao and was hard-working and willing to endure hardships. However, I never expected that he would become the top scholar. Now Jiao Jiao is the top scholar's wife. Isn't that so?" Nanny Fong added a handful of firewood to the stove with a smile. To be honest, Nanny Fong didn't think highly of the son-in-law at first. Like Marquis Gu, she felt that the son-in-law wasn't good enough for eldest Mississippi. Although eldest Miss grew up in the countryside, she was still the descendant of the Marquis's household. What did the son-in-law have? He didn't have a good family background, and was still a little cripple. Although all things were inferior, only studying was good. However, there was a saying that scholars were useless. Nanny Fong was always worried that this son-in-law would achieve nothing in the end, and that eldest Miss would be wronged by him. Fortunately, although she was unhappy, she didn't show it on her face. Otherwise, if she offended the top scholar's son-in-law, her life would be awkward. Gu Jiaojiao and little Jing Kong arrived home first. Everyone didn't know what to say when they saw the money she brought back with a sack. Xiao Lulang, on the other hand, was only sent back when the sky turned dark. It wasn't Feng Lin or Lin Qingye. It was Ning Ziyuan, who was cheated by Xiao Lulang today. Today was a big day for all the scholars, so they should drink a few cups. Xiao Lulang was the new top scholar, so he should drink a lot. Xiao Lulang had never drunk before, so he couldn't hold his liquor well. However, the few cups of wine at the lunch banquet weren't enough to get him drunk. The problem was that after the banquet, some of them went to other places in 2s and 3s. It was a bit difficult to talk about what happened. Xiao Lulang didn't want to stay there, and insisted on going home. Everyone was unhappy and asked him to punish himself by drinking 3 cups before letting him go. This guy really dared to drink. After drinking, he passed out. Ning Ziyuan had a family and he didn't like that kind of occasion, so he suggested to send the new top scholar back. It's to the left, right? Is it that alley? Ning Ziyuan asked Xiao Lulang in the carriage. Xiao Lulang was so drunk that he ignored him. Ning Ziyuan shook his head and asked the coachman to go forward. Perhaps he was in a hurry, so he almost bumped into someone when he reached the entrance of the alley. It was 2 women, one in a Taoist robe and the other in purple. I'm sorry. The coachman hurriedly apologized. Ning Ziyuan also lifted the curtain and got out of the carriage. He bowed to the 2 and apologized. Are you all right, ladies? I'm sorry, I was in a hurry and bumped into you. Ning Ziyuan was still wearing the 3rd place official's robe. The girl in purple recognized him at a glance. She smiled and whispered in the Taoist nun's ear, Sister, it's that black 3rd place official. Ning Ziyuan, am I black? Then his face darkened even more. The Taoist nun gave the girl in purple a warning look. The girl in purple stuck out her tongue. The Taoist nun looked away and bowed slightly to Ning Ziyuan. It's okay, goodbye. Then she took her sister's hand and walked away. When the 2 of them passed by the carriage, the night wind suddenly blew the curtain of the carriage open, revealing a young man who was half leaning against the carriage wall and resting with his eyes closed. The moonlight flowed and fell on his red embroidered top scholar's robe, reflecting a faint glow. His eyes were closed, and his facial features were as exquisite as jade. There was a hint of drunkenness, and he was so handsome that it was suffocating. The Taoist nun grew up in a Taoist temple, and thought that she had cut off the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the human world. But at this moment, she had to admit that this young man was really tempting. Of course, she was just looking at him. She didn't forget that this young man was taken. She didn't care about other people's things. When the 2 of them were far away, the girl in purple suddenly came back to her senses. She touched her hot cheeks and said, Sister, did you see that just now? The one in the carriage is the new top scholar. Oh my God. He's too. To what? The girl in purple suddenly couldn't find the words to describe it. Her heart was pounding. She already thought that he was handsome when she saw him from afar during the day. But when she saw him from such a close distance, she realized that he was more than handsome. She was simply mesmerizing. She shook the Taoist nun's hand excitedly. Sister. You don't have a chance. The Taoist nun poured cold water on her. The girl in purple's heart broke. Wah, the 2 of them got into their own carriages. Ning Ziyuan also helped the drunk Xiao Lulang out of the carriage. What they didn't notice was that there was another carriage parked at the other end of the alley. The crown princess was sitting in the carriage. She was passing by and accidentally saw the top scholar of the imperial court get off the carriage to apologize to a daughter of the Yuan family and a Taoist nun. She knew who the top 3 were. However, she didn't go see the top scholar parade on horseback, so she didn't know Ning Ziyuan. She recognized him only because of his official robes. There was nothing to see about an ordinary-looking top scholar. She was about to leave when Ning Ziyuan helped a young man out of the carriage. That was the new top scholar, which was him. A young and tender face involuntarily flashed across the crown princess' mind. The 13 or 14-year-old young duke was still a young man who had just lost his childishness. He was very likable, but not in the way that men and women liked each other. The young man in front of her had a face that was almost identical to his, but seemed to be completely different. He was taller, and his facial features had matured. He had the air of a young man, and also the strength of a man. He was beginning to exude the charm of a man. Knock, knock, knock. Ning Ziyuan knocked on the door of a family's courtyard. With a creak, the door was opened. Who are you looking for? Excuse me, is this Xiao Liulang's house? Ning Ziyuan asked. Isn't this Lulang? Auntie Lu recognized Xiao Lulang and hurriedly ran out. She ran forward a few houses and said, Jiao Jiao, Lulang is back. Then the crown princess saw a girl in green walk out of a house. She quickly walked up to Ning Ziyuan and Xiao Lulang and took Xiao Lulang from Ning Ziyuan's hands. Xiao Lulang was a bit drunk. The moment the girl put her arm around his waist, he opened his eyes warily. It's me, Gu Jiao said. Jiao Jiao. And I'm here. Oh, Xiao Lulang gave up resisting and was helped back to the courtyard by Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao should have thanked Ning Ziyuan, but the crown princess didn't notice. Her gaze had been fixed on Gu Jiao's arm that was wrapped around Xiao Liulang's waist. She suddenly felt a bit irritated. Crown princess? The female official to the side cautiously called out to her. Only then did the crown princess notice that she had torn her handkerchief. She loosened her grip and said with a smile, My stomach felt a bit uncomfortable just now. Let's go back to the palace. The female official quickly said, This servant will quickly call an imperial physician for you. The crown princess nodded. She took one last look at the two people holding each other in the night. He wasn't Ahing, he wasn't. Ahing wouldn't fall in love with another woman, nor would he let another woman get close to him. Never. Gu Jiao helped him into the courtyard. Xiao Lulang was this drunk. Naturally, he couldn't sleep in the same room as little Jing Kong. If something happened during the night, little Jing Kong would be scared, and he wouldn't be able to take care of him. Gu Jiao helped Xiao Lulang back to her room. She helped Xiao Lulang lie on her bed and took off his official hat. It was already not cold at the end of April. The thick-top scholar's robes felt heavy and stuffy on his body. Xiao Lulang was sweating. Gu Jiao went to fetch some water and planned to wipe him down. Just as she sat down, she heard him mutter, Jiao Jiao, I'm hot. Normally, his words were cold and clear. Now that he was drunk, he suddenly had a bit of a seductive charm. Speaking of which, when they first arrived here, his voice was still going through puberty. It didn't sound bad, but it wasn't too pleasant either. Later on, his voice gradually matured. It was just that Gu Jiao was with him every day, so she didn't notice the change. Until that voice just now. Gu Jiao was startled, and her ears went limp. Gu Jiao put down the basin of water and unbuttoned his clothes. Just as she undid his collar, his slender neck was revealed. The delicate Adam's apple on his neck moved. It was a bit seductive. Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao used her strong willpower to unbutton his clothes and remove his thick official's robes. Then, Gu Jiao began to wipe his face. He drank wine, and his cheeks were slightly red. His lips were very moist, and there was a glint of water from the wine. Perhaps he was woken up by the wipe, as he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was a bit hazy, and it was extremely seductive. Gu Jiao. I didn't drool. No. Xiao Lulang asked drunkenly. Why are you looking at me like that? Gu Jiao said honestly, You look good. He smiled gently. Which part of me looked good? You look good everywhere. His eyebrows were good, his eyes were good, and his nose was good. Gu Jiao glanced at his red lips, and silently added in her heart, His lips are good too, the best. He laid on the bed and looked at her, revealing a hazy and seductive gaze that would never appear on a normal day. He curved his lips. Just looking? Huh. Gu Jiao was stunned. In the next second, he raised his slender arm, and his jade-like hand clasped the back of Gu Jiao's head. With just the right amount of force, he pulled her towards him. Digression. Don't ask. If you ask, it's a kiss. Where's the screeching groundhog? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/112868593. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. that you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.